me, you will know that there's a new meeting ID that you have to put in. The one that was circulated last week with the agenda is incorrect. So, but I see there are a few people who have joined us. Thank you for that, and welcome, and thanks for your patience. Well, we got this sorted. I believe we are now all set to start. So I would like to begin, as we usually do, with the playing of our national anthem. Thank you very much. I'll now read our Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. I will now ask our councillors if anyone has a pecuniary interest to declare in tonight's proceedings. I see none. Okay, thank you. Record that in minutes. So our first item of business would be to approve the agenda. If I could get a mover and seconder, please, to approve it as circulated. Councillor Woods moves, seconded by Councillor Lamb.
And I inputted it into my transcript.
Any discussion?
So yeah, I think so, yeah.
All those in favor? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Okay, I saw a mic that was open, but it's now closed. So thanks. I'll ask the folks who are online, if you wouldn't mind, please keep your microphones muted unless you're speaking to an agenda item. Okay, our first item of business this evening is, or a second item 4.1 on the agenda, is a delegation. We have with us a guest presenter, Nadine Hammond, from the Museum on Tower Hill in Parry Sound. And Nadine, I'm happy to welcome you. Please go ahead with your presentation. We've got a mic for you there. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Mayor, councillors, thank you for your time and consideration. The West Parry Sound District Museum was started by a group of citizens who believed that the West Parry Sound District needed a place to house its history, to preserve and share it with future generations. Founded in 1983, the museum was originally housed in the Parasol Fire Hall. In 1993, the building on Tower Hill was finished and the museum was able to move into their purpose-built building. In 2020, the West Prairie Sun District Museum updated its strategic plan to identify a new and clearer, more direct mission statement and 4 strategic objectives. These objectives are to enhance the community access to heritage, capturing our heritage as it happens, identifying funding sources, as well as securing current funding in order to ensure the financial security of the organization. And lastly, to protect our current capital investments. Since identifying those objectives, we have been working to achieve these outcomes. Community access is more than just exhibitions, as is reflected in our highlights slide. Access to heritage, like the museum's programming and ability to make our resources available to the communities we serve. We are continuing to serve our communities in 2023 with several exciting exhibitions and ongoing projects, which should be included in your package. We have digitized 5 years worth of the North Stars and are working on the space for researchers to come in and browse our digital holdings. None of these projects would be possible without staff. Staff and volunteers are responsible for doing the work on any program the museum offers, be it virtual, an exhibition, research, outreach, even recruiting more volunteers. This is reflected in our expenses. Our income budget is hopeful. However, as much as we kept our expense budget as low as possible, by this I mean $214,000 is a bare minimum operating budget. It is what we require to keep the museum operating. It does not include capital investments, such as repairs, upgrades to the building. Any funding received over and above our operating needs will be invested into our building. The museum is respectfully requesting that this year, the municipality of Whitestone consider appointing a councillor to become a municipal rep on the West Prairie Sun District Museum Board. You have been very generous in the past providing funding, and we hope you will continue to do so. We also hope that you would consider becoming more involved in our operations. Your financial contribution will be an investment into the preservation of Whitestone's heritage, programming and tourism opportunities provided by having a museum that is open year-round and is available to your community. Having a representative on our board will allow you to ensure that the money is spent wisely and the value of the West Prairie Sun District Museum. You can illustrate how. Sentence is slightly odd, sorry. So yes, you will be allowed to ensure the money is spent wisely, and you'll be able to communicate the value that the museum brings to your municipality. I would like to conclude this by introducing you to our current team, which is on the final slide or presentation included in your package agenda. I once again want to thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you very much, Nadine. That was a very concise presentation, and thank you for that. I would like to give councillors an opportunity to ask any questions or any comments they might have. Yes, Councillor Bray.
Thank you. Nadine, thank you very much for your presentation. That was very nice to hear about or to actually read also on your presentation. And I must say that my husband and I enjoy going to the museum many times, and we've taken many people through, like everybody knew. I'm sure we take them to the museum every time. So thank you again for all that you do.
Thank you very much.
I don't have really a question.
Anybody else? Okay. You did I'm not sure where I saw it. What, in the package, was there a request for funding, or not? There was, right?
Request for funding was sent separately from this presentation. This was
Mhm.
more intended to be a follow-up, not necessarily a follow-up to that, but just to let you know that what we've been doing over the year, it's meant to be a recap so that you can see what we've been doing, as well as a request for that representation on our board.
Okay, well, thank you. I asked because usually when we have presentations of this time of year, we do get a request, and we do put these requests all together as we consider our budget for 2023 and make a decision on what we can and do by way of funding for things, but so that will come up in due course, and I suppose we can put onto our agenda at some point the question you've asked about a director. I noticed when I saw the list of your executive, there are a number of folks I know here from the Westbury municipalities on your board already. So looks like you have a good
We're very good for it.
good representation. Okay, well, if there are no more questions, I will once again thank Nadine for coming out to join us in person this evening, and thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just later on in the agenda, the donations are in there, and I think the museum is in there. The request is in the donation.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I knew that. I thought I had seen something about it, and
That's in
but
there.
I wasn't going to start flipping through all the pages.
Yeah, so we'll deal with it tonight. Okay,
Thank you. Good timing.
yeah, good time for you to come out. So have you been to all the municipalities? Are we the middle at the end, or?
You are the second to last. I have been to every municipality with the exception of Eagle.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so next we do have a planning item. And I don't see our planner. I was going to ask the CAO if she knows.
Paula just sent him the link,
Oh,
so he is joining us. I imagine he'll be here momentarily.
all right. Well, I guess we can give him a second, and if he doesn't make it, then perhaps we can move ahead and do something like the committee of the whole first, because we have to go into, or we usually go into, sorry, not the committee of the whole, the consent agenda. I meant to say, we do usually go. Oh, here we are.
Are you ready to join us? Right, so did you leave it on? Are you joining by phone? Are you on the computer?
You know what, while you're waiting for this, I see on the order papers, there is a resolution. We should have done it before she left, but could I get a mover and seconder that the council of the municipality of Whitestone receive for information the presentation from Nadine Hammond regarding the Tower on the Hill Museum? If I can get a mover, that would be Councillor Nash, seconded by Councillor Woods. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Just a bit of a formality, but
Yeah, go to council agenda for minutes, and then you'll see. This is March 21st. Click on it.
Probably also put them right up to the light. It just caught them that because it's not too very long.
It'll say Zoom revise. Just. And that will.
Our planner, John Jackson, is caught up in the, for those of you on Zoom, is caught up in the change of the meeting ID in Zoom, so he's just logging on right now. And so we might as well start. I'll accept a motion to move into committee of the whole. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Gray. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone move into committee of the whole at, I'm showing 6:56 p.m. All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you.
I think he's Zoom.
Hmm?
Let's double check. That's John.
Okay, Zoom user, is he gonna come on with video? There he is. Great.
Sure. Yeah, sorry, I got mixed up with something and I don't know what it was, but here I am.
Well, thank you for joining us, Mr. Jackson, and we're ready to go with the one planning item that we have, which is a consent application from Christopher Moffat. Would you like to kick this off for us, please?
Yes, Mr. Moffat owns a parcel of land at the intersection of Irwin Road and Balsam Road. And it's about 40 acres, and he's proposing to create 3 new rural lots at that intersection. 2 will have frontage on the Irwin Road northeast, north or east and west road, which is a municipal road, and a retained and severed lot on the Balsam Road. The lots comply with the standards of the municipality's rural policy and zoning requirements. There is a man-made pond, but that has left sufficient area for the proposed lots to be able to be developed around this man-made pond, which is not have any heritage features, at least in the data that we have shown in any of the documents that we use. So the only thing on the property is a barn that's under renovation, which I think I've illustrated in a couple of photographs. So unless there's any questions, we have some standard conditions for this proposed consent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Questions for Mr. Jackson? Councillor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have 2 very quick questions, John, if you don't mind. The first question is, do you know what the size of the pond is? I'm just curious, of the man-made pond.
I would estimate it to be somewhere in the order of about 4 hectares or 10 acres.
Okay, perfect. And the second question was, when I'm looking at the plan on page 4 of your report, I believe it is, above the barn, it says part 1. That is not part of the lot being set, correct?
No, that is a historical lot that was taken off the property many years ago.
Perfect, thanks. That's all the questions I have.
So I was noticing that same thing, the part one is a different lot. It's not part of this property at all, right?
No, this is not part of the Moffett lands.
Okay. So my interpretation based on the fact that these are, I mean, basically they're 100-meter frontage and 2 hectares and acres. These are essentially building lots for residences. They're not.
Yes,
That's the intent of it, correct?
yes.
Okay. All right. Are there other questions or comments from councillors? And there's no rezoning involved, correct?
No.
Okay. All right, well, if there's nothing else, what we would normally do then is reconvene into a regular meeting. I'm assuming there aren't any questions. I suppose I should ask, there aren't any questions from anybody else who's in the meeting. Okay, all right, so a motion to reconvene you then into regular session. Councillor Bray moves, seconded by Councillor Lamb. At the Council of Municipality of Whitestone reconvene into regular meeting at, it looks like 7:01 p.m. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. That's carried. And now, as a matter arising, by the way, I see that there are a few microphones that are open. If folks on Zoom, if you have a microphone open, please close it. Thank you. That way we don't get any background noise yet. Okay. This then is the motion to approve what we were just looking at. Whereas John Jackson Planner Incorporated has prepared a report for the Parry Sound Area Planning Board regarding consent application B01/2023 Whitestone. The applicant is 1502701 Ontario Limited, Mr. Moffat, and provided a copy to the municipality of Whitestone. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receives this report as information, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone recommends this consent application for approval in principle, subject to the following conditions. And there are 3. Number 1, that payment of a parkland dedication fee be made in accordance with the current municipal fees and charges bylaw. 2, that the new lots receive 911 addressing from the municipality. And 3, that payment of all applicable planning fees be paid to the municipality of Whitestone. Could I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Nash. Any further discussion on this motion?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I assume that people were notified in the area. And I assume there were no letters or issued or complaints or that true or false, or do you know?
Mr. Jackson.
Did you hear the question, John? Yes, he is.
I did, your worship. Not in this application. Simultaneous applications that were circulated at this particular time did receive comments, but not for the Moffat consent. So there were no submissions, or actually not even any phone calls. We often get phone calls, but none here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, I guess I will ask our CIO to call the roll for the vote, for a recorded vote, please.
Thank you, Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Conry.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, so whoever's on 705-387-1441 and is whistling for their dog, could you please mute your phone?
I just need
Oh, all right, okay. All right, well, I guess I could.
Your downfall.
Busted. Okay. Item 7 on the agenda is our consent agenda, which tonight consists of regular council meeting minutes for Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, and special council meeting minutes for Monday, March 13th, 2023, plus the unfinished business that's listed on page 4 of your agenda. So could I get a mover and seconder for the following? Whereas the council of the municipality has reviewed the consent agenda consisting of those items that I just read. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve the council meeting minutes, following ones for the regular council meeting minutes of March 7th, 2023, and the special council meeting minutes for Monday, March 13th, 2023. And that council receives for information the unfinished business listing contained in the consent agenda dated March 21st, 2023. Who would like to move that up? Okay, Councillor Nash moves and Councillor Lamb seconds. All those in favor? Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. On March the 7th meeting, at the end, it says George Palmer Mayor. I chaired that. So I think it should be amended to the deputy. It's not George.
You are correct, and as I recall the actual order papers, we got it right, but but the minutes need to be, thank you. So those
To be amended.
those minutes should be approved as amended. Then I'll just
That's fine.
March 7th, 2023, I will put as amended.
That's all I.
Thanks a lot. That's a good catch. Yeah. Anything else? Councillor Nash.
I might be using. On item number 9, this is for the March 7th. Meeting. On item number 9, it looks like we're noting the resolution 2023-115. This is in regards to the health, the council health insurance benefits. And on the second page of that motion, it also notes a second motion, an amendment of it. And I thought we only passed down motion 223-115, and the amount of $4,000 that's noted was revised to 2,500. But it also make note that in the resolution, oh, sorry, I would have thought the resolution was just one resolution. That wasn't the rule of resolution. That makes any sense.
Mr. Mayor, there was a second resolution, as you can see, it was moved by Deputy Mayor Lamb and seconded by Mayor George Conry to make that one amendment. So that resolution is 2023116. We then go back to resolution 203-115 with the amendment, which clarified it. And it was a little bit confusing, but we tried our best to explain it in the minutes, but I think we got where we wanted to go with that.
But that is the way it.
That is the way it
That's
happened.
correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Remember just on the same minutes, just under, it was number 13, under counselor item. And just would ask as a sponsor, I went down and tried to listen to the recording. And under the questions on page 36, so it is the second bullet point, the third bullet point under Counselor Nash. When it says ask the fire chief about burning the brush at the landfill site. And I think what I said was more asked about the burning of the brush, would ask for an update on the option of burning. And then we already did report. In the second bullet for there, it said asked if the landfill covered wood chips was non-combustible. And I think what I said was, are the wood chips okay to coat the landfill with? Is there combustible? So I think it's just rewording it a little. I think it's just isn't what I had said. So I don't know if those can get edited a bit. And then the last bullet point, I know in the past when we've spoken about council items, there's no kind of, I'll say, debate or opinion or anything. Well, no, when my item was the top of the dash, so that we're getting at the word version of a certain document. And then it says Deputy Mayor Lamb indicated names of the previous is divided. And I don't think that has anything to do with the comment that I said. So we'd like to move the deputy mayor indicated names to put it on the deputy mayor's spot, but I don't think we're getting the back and forth communication in the council questions in the past. So we ask that that be updated as well. If possible.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can ask staff to go back and revisit the audio. That's all I can suggest.
Perfect, thank you very much. And the only other question I have under the minutes is for the next set of minutes, the March 13th. I just wanted to make sure, I thought I back when I couldn't refund it, just so it's noted that I didn't leave the meeting at about 8:40 p.m. I thought it was there and then I couldn't pick up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you look right at the top where it says present, it says Scott Nash Councillor left the meeting at 8:41 p.m.
I've just highlighted it, thank you. I thought I read it once, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else about these minutes? Okay, can I call, if not, can I call the question then to approve the one as amended and all in favor? Okay, I think everybody's in favor. All right. That brings us then to item 8, which is accounts payable.
I had a question about 712, I thought we were leaving, so sorry.
Oh, all right, yeah, there is an item calling matters arising from consent agendas. So I guess if there was further comment or questions, this is the time to do it before we move on. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just reading through, to be honest, I have read it through right well, a couple of meetings, the unfinished business, so kind of skimmed through it. When I read through it in detail leading up to tonight, I was just wondering if you might be able to spend a few minutes and just maybe go through a couple of the items and maybe add a few items if council feels they should be on unfinished business and he's not sure if it was done or on it. But the first one was On the first page of page 400. On February 22nd, 2022, it says surely will vote on. And I think the status on the right, there's lots of update, but just item description. I'll note at the very bottom of that item, it says, and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone is hereby provide the following direction. And then so on. So I didn't know if maybe, I don't actually need the and that other there, it just says surely we'll vote launch, and then we have lots of status update, just to clean it up a little bit. I hadn't noticed that there wasn't anything in the bottom of this until I read it.
And do you want to, do you have any?
No, I just
Oh.
made a note.
Okay, the clerk has made a note relative to that particular item.
Perfect. And then I guess I'm just asking a question this one. On the next item, right below it says March 15, 2022. It's about bylaw 16-2022 being a bylaw 4. I won't read it out of it. But the comment says to be reviewed with the applicant January 2024. I thought that was passed, but I know we're probably waiting. Wondering what it is. It is here flagging for something, just wondering what you flag for staff may know, or staff can get back to us if they don't know it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this was an interim bylaw that was to be in place for 2 years. So that's a note to remind us to speak to the applicant in January 2024.
Then on page 7, it says March 7th, 2023, and it speaks to the health spending account, but the amount was noted there is $4,000. I'm just, I understand correctly. 500.
Given the item has been dealt with, should it not come off the list?
Yeah, we'll just take that off the list since that's dealt with, other than there's a couple of other items in that. No, actually, we won't take it off. So the health spending account has been dealt with, as council knows. The critical illness insurance is still up for discussion with the insurance company, so we'll leave that on.
Okay. And then just in summary, I kind of written some notes too. I know that throughout here, we speak to a couple of the land matters, I'll call it, 20 pages. We spoke about the bylaw one, the 16-22 on March 15th. And there's another mention here of the ambulance fine home matter. Ambulance fine home July 5th, 2022. We speak to Norma Lake. But I just wondering about other matters that might have to come back to us that we aren't showing here. Things like I know there was a planning matter for the highways that I think we had an H put on it, a holding pattern, but I don't know that I didn't see that here. Or other planning items that we're waiting to come back for. I know we spoke at the very beginning of this when I was going through it. The animal and bird control bylaw we've spoken to. And it mentions also the rental unit bylaw. But I don't see any mention on here of the procedural bylaw that we're working on, trailer bylaw that we're working on, strategic plan is being reviewed. So I don't know if maybe staff can go back and maybe just add a few things to here that are being worked on by council, or a few things that may need to come off of it if we could.
So you,
Councillor Lamb.
oh, all right, go ahead. Councilor.
Yeah, I would hope, and you know, I watched this evolve over the years, and this list is pretty extensive. I can tell you 3 or 4 years ago, there was no such list at all, and so I compliment staff for doing this, and I'm sure that we do miss some things, and maybe they should be on the list, but I would hope that as we finish off the strategic plan, and we take all these things and all the things that Councilor Nash talked about, the fair bylaw, the chicken bylaw, or whatever, those will be put in the strategic plan and be given a timeline as to when we're going to look at them, and be given a responsibility and that sort of thing. So we won't necessarily, a lot of these things will fall off once we know, for instance, that we're not going to deal with it until whatever. First quarter of 2024, right? It doesn't need to be sitting on this, right? So, but I'm sure there's probably a lot that has come to us, but I don't know when it's coming back. But hopefully, I guess my point is that I think this strategic plan will clean some of this stuff up. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Good point. All right, any other comments in regards to the unfinished business? I guess I'm noticing there was the questions that Councillor Nash referred to earlier regarding burning brush, the possibility of burning brush at Alt's landfill. I noticed that our fire chief is here. Do you have any?
Send my report into Judy. I thought I was supposed to go on the next meeting with this.
Oh, okay, all right.
I don't think it quite made it in time for the close of the agenda, but it's on the next meeting.
Okay, well, thank you. I just thought maybe there was a quick opportunity to take something off the list, but anyway, not to worry. Okay. I'll just put here. Review of items on list. Oh, 50 motions for that. Okay, now if we could go ahead to accounts payable, could I get a mover and seconder that the council of the municipality of Whitestone receive for information the accounts payable listing in the amount of $481,582.95 for the period ending March 15th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Nash. Any discussion? So I'm going to go back to gallery. Okay, thank you. That's a little better. Okay, there don't seem to be any questions related to payables. Is that, oh, all right, Councillor Nash.
I have one, truthfully, one really quick question. And I don't see it on here, but it's more of a question about payables. I'm not sure if it can be answered today. I flagged the TDVs on page 7 of the report, but it wasn't for any expense that was on it or anything. It was just to know that we have the Starlink system now. And I know the Starlink's been great, but I've never seen an invoice for Starlink ever show up in our accounts payable. So I flagged the TD Visa because I was wondering, are we paying for it through the Visa account maybe, which is why we're not seeing it? I was just wondering where it's showing up, and I just thought, oh, maybe it's going on to Visa direct or something.
It is charged by Visa, correct, Manish? Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can identify it there, but it's like $140 a month plus HST, whatever that works out to be. At least I think that's what it is, unless it went up.
That's what it is for most people.
Yeah, that's pretty much the standard rate. Okay, any other questions about payables? If not, can I get a show of hands to approve the motion, which was to receive them for information? Okay, that brings us then to item 9, which is staff reports, and the first one is has to do with the Blue Box, the transition to producer responsibility with respect to the Blue Box. So let's get a motion just to get it on the table. Mover and seconder that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report Public Works 2023-03 Blue Box transition update or information. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Okay, so we have our Manager of Public Works, Dave Creaser, on the line, as you've heard already, and maybe you would like to introduce this, Dave.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Can everyone hear me?
We can in the room here.
Excellent, thank you. So the Blue Box transition is transition from our current government-funded to an individual producer responsibility program. That is through the Waste Free Ontario Act, and that has passed recent years. It does move rather quickly across Ontario, and this is going to be a standard process across Ontario. So all municipalities are going to be under this act. Circular Materials Ontario has assumed the operating of collection and receiving of the Blue Box materials. Through the transition for us, we will transition in July of 2024. And there's going to be an 18-month period where this transition will take place for us. The full rollout of the program will commence January 1st, 2026. So there's this period of 18 months where we're going to try and work through this transition because things are moving rather quickly. And they're trying to Circular Materials Ontario is trying to set up all these contracts to continue services, which is a big deal to our ratepayers. We want continuity of services for the recyclables. Some of the notable things that are excluded from the Blue Box program will be campsites, commercial, industrial, churches. We've been working with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. There's been a variety of other stakeholders through the government that's been working with us as well to change their names as well. So we have also have our surrounding municipalities, which we've been talking to and trying to get together to try and understand what's happening, what's coming from us, and working towards negotiating any negotiation requirements going forward with CMO Circular Materials. So we have an active working relationship with Seguin, Perry Sound, Archipelago, and McDougall as well. I assume that McKellar will also jump on board as well to get involved in that. We're looking to work with a consultant who is a long time professional in the industry, Mike Barrett. I've worked with him over the years with the Blue Box program. He has agreed to work with us going forward. There's not a whole lot to do at this point. We don't have a contract yet. We should receive a contract in the coming weeks, I'm told, from Circular Materials Ontario. A lot of that's basically going to ask us to continue to do what we're doing until January 1st, 2026. With them picking up the tab instead of getting it through Waste Diversion Ontario, we would get reimbursed through Circular Materials Ontario. They've offered 75% of our eligible costs, which is up from 50% through Waste Diversion Ontario. They claim that there is a standard 25% non-eligibles that are in our stream from a variety of sources. Some of these could be from some of the places I've mentioned, like the campsites, commercial, industrial, churches, as well as items that don't belong in the blue box, that aren't covered in the blue box as well. So we've been working with trying to get numbers on what our numbers are for commercial campsites, industrial and churches in our municipality from sorry, I didn't write down their name. MPAC's got that information, so we're working with them to try and get that number as well. So hopefully we can reduce that down from 25% down to a much lower number and increase our money, our return on expenses. So this will be an 18-month period. We don't really know how it's going to look beyond that. Right now, there's a lot of unanswered questions. Circular Materials Ontario has a tender out that they've closed in February for receiving facilities. That should include us as well. We don't know who submitted and who they're looking at. I've been in contact with our current service provider, who has put an application in, and that's through Bracebridge, Waste Connections in Bracebridge. They're actively looking for to win that tender, but there is a stipulation in the act that no material is supposed to be hauled further than an hour away, which we land outside that window going to Bracebridge. So hauling our recyclables currently, we're outside that window, so we don't really know how that's going to look, if there's going to be another service provider that will receive our materials between now and then. We don't know who we're going to use for hauling of the materials. It could very well be a Waste Connections Ontario, as we currently are. There would be an adjusted price for the hauling beyond the hour, over the hour limit, that we would have to work on with compensation from Circular Materials. But for the 18-month period, we're trying to work with continuity of services and be compensated for it at the same time. What we currently own for assets for the blue box are, we have at each location, both at York Landfill and at Alls Landfill, we have 2 compactors. Those are the big compactors that have the roll-off bins attached to them. Each of them have the 2 bins. They have been around for, I don't know the year on them, but they're long in the tooth. They've been around for quite a while, and they do need maintenance, and we certainly don't know how long they're going to be reliable as a source for compaction. So that's a consideration for us. And when I say that specifically, there's they've been exposed to the sun, and there's a lot of relays and different things that are really starting to show. We've had some issues with cracking and moisture and frost getting into some of those and freezing up and blowing some apart. So we do have some concerns about that going forward, but I believe the 18-month period we can certainly work with that. There's a lot of questions that are left to be answered, but at this time, this is the information we have, and we will continue to bring any information forward, including that offer of a contract for the 18-month period once we receive it. There's going to be some, they're going to ask for some commitments from us, but by no means are we going to be able to put commitment longer than 18 months. I wouldn't say, but we can certainly commit to working with them, providing the services we provide currently at a rate which increases from 50% to 75 or greater. So that's where we're at right now. There's going to be some requests or requirements to reduce the contamination that's in our stream right now. So that would look like 4%. So down from whatever percentage we have now of contamination would be reduced down to 4%. So that would be a working target that they will work with us to work towards. Do we have any questions on this?
Okay, questions from councillors? Seeing hands up, we'll start at the end. Councillor Nash.
Thank you, David, for the report. Lots of information in there. I guess my first question, if I understand it correct, CMO is putting out a tender for bidding with, I think you said, Waste Connections. But I know on page 2 of your report, it says a contract to be provided to Whitestone in the coming weeks. Is it like a sole source contract with CMO? It sounds like they're the only ones that are going to be doing stuff. And do we have a choice of awarding this to CMO, or do they automatically do it for it? That's my first question. I don't know if you can answer to that.
I believe I can, through you, Mr. Mayor. The individual, so what's the individual producer responsibility consortium group, they got together. There was a few groups that showed interest. It got fairly aggressive fairly quickly, and commitments were made by CMO to meet the criteria to commit to a percentage. I don't know exactly, I forgot what the percentage was. They got so much of the municipalities and commitments to do to complete these services, and by doing so, they met the threshold within the act to become the sole entity that then represents all the individual producers. So the individual producers are now represented only by CMO. So we deal only with CMO, and then CMO put out a tender for facilities, receiving facilities. And that's what the tender that's out right now that they have yet to award. And that's where we would haul it. So our material would then be hauled to a receiving facility that they award to. And that's what's in question right now. I hope that answers your question.
That did, David. Thank you very much. And then, so right now, if I'm just give an example, if we hauled 100 tons of recyclables and it costs $5,000 or $10,000. Currently, it says the current Waste Diversion Ontario reimburses the municipality for 50%. Would that mean if there was a tipping fee or a bill for $10,000 that in the past $5,000 would have been refunded by the WDO, and that number is now increasing to 75% that will be reimbursed? Am I understanding that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the formula includes costs, related costs. So we have right now staffing costs, we have electricity, heating, management costs on top of that as well. So there's certainly other costs that are included, and there's maintenance of the site and whatnot. So that's the current agreement that we have now. The new agreement is going to look a little different. So as much as 75% sounds more than 50%, I can assure you that CMO is going to be diligent in finding efficiencies every way they can. So that would probably work into them drilling down eligible costs. They're going to work in that direction. So they're going to want to increase efficiencies and likely reduce eligible costs. So at this point in the game, starting out, it looks like it's a good situation for us. But once they start looking at let's say, residuals or items that don't belong in the blue box and aren't covered, that's not their responsibility. Once they start to roll that back out, then it may be less advantageous for us. We still have to collect for all these non-eligible sources as we have in the past. So other municipalities, some larger ones, are looking at doing one area of their site, collecting only eligible items and looking at keeping their residual or their down to the 4% as required or requested, and then having a separate site to deal with non-eligibles from, let's say, the churches and your campsites and these other locations that aren't part of it. I mean, it could be some commercial in there as well, industrial. So that's an option as well. But for a solution for Whitestone, Whitestone problem needs a Whitestone solution. And we are not large enough to look at doing separating things out right now. At this point, I think it's advantageous for us to continue on with providing the services to our ratepayers, and then work at getting as much as we can out of the CMO for doing this service, completing the service for them. I think that's what we're working at right now. It looks like it's advantageous to us. We're going to try and stay on that road where it's advantageous to us. If that we start to deviate from that, we will certainly be talking. Absolutely, we're bringing this to council and discussing our options. We do have that consultant that we'll be working with our West Prairie Sound neighbors, and hopefully we can make this a smooth process, as smooth as we can, which is what we're working towards.
All right, and my very final question is, I read on the report here on page 3 of your report, it says Whitestone will be responsible for the haulage of material. Whitestone would have to secure these haulage services. So I believe right now, even though we might get a refund of 75%, it's up to the municipality to get it from, I'll call it place A to place B. And I'm guessing that's where a large cost would come from, the haulage. Have we ever thought about getting a roll-off truck we can have bins on and using staff to be able to drive the material to and from at our own cost, so the cost would be greatly reduced, and possibly using that bin, the roll-off with a flatbed or anything else to haul material or use it for other items? I think maybe we just might want to look at, would it be advantageous to have a roll-off truck to be able to do these services with? Do you know if there's ever been any look at that or look into that? And am I correct that we pay the trucking part back and forth?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, we have Waste Connections Ontario do both. They come with trains, so they have their truck and their trailer, let's say, and they can pick up 2 bins. So they can take 2 bins there and 2 bins back. So they can show up with 2 bins, drop the 2 empty bins, pick up the 2 full bins, and go. There's a little more to it, but that's what they can do. So currently our bills include haulage. So it includes the receiving and the haulage. That's what it currently does. So if Waste Connections continues and they award the tender, there wouldn't be much change. We might receive more money, but the service would still be there. That's the hope. Going forward, as the contract changes and whatnot, we'll be looking at every aspect, as you've indicated there. We will review that with our neighbors and work together for solutions. We'll be looking at everything, and that's a great point that you've pointed out. Thank you.
So have we in the past looked at roll-offs or not?
My understanding, there's been a conversation with other municipalities. Yes, I've done it personally with Township of Perry, and it wasn't the business case didn't make sense. It didn't work out. Here, hauling that distance, and again, so close to the transition date as we are right now, it didn't make sense to make the investment for a year or two to even look at that business case. To purchase that for such a short period, it wasn't looked at. No.
Thank you.
Councillor Lamb.
I think my question was answered. I just want to make sure, I'm not sure I understand all of this, by the way. Thank God we have staff that are looking at it. But right now, we get 50% of our eligible costs from the WDO, I guess, Waste Diversion Ontario. Get up to 50% of the eligible costs for eligible sources for our Blue Box program. So what is it that we get right now in terms of dollars? What does that 50% equate to? 10,000, 50,000? What is that number that we're getting right now? And again, if you don't have it right available.
I can round it for you. I have to look exactly what the dollars are, but if we paid 39,000 if we paid 39,000 last year for our roll-off costs, I think we're up much higher than that. I think we'll have to look back. I mean, Manish will have to look back, because if the recycling costs that we pay to Waste Connection Ontario that you see on the line items and in the on our budget, that is quite a large number. We get reimbursed more than that. So there's, on top of that, we claim wages for supervision, for site maintenance, for there's all these other fee, administration, there's advertising, there's all these things that we claim in there. We get a portion of that. So I'd have to get that number from Manish. I think our new number is going to be close to 75,000 to 90,000, I believe, annually.
That's right now. That's what we receive right now from.
I don't think that's what I think that's what we will receive. I have to talk to Manish. It's Waste Diversion Ontario does give us a number.
My simple question is, I guess we're moving to user responsibility. We're going over, eventually we'll get 75% of eligible costs. I don't understand all the detail. But when push comes to shove, 1, 2, 3 years, I guess, is this going to cost us more, or are we going to save? And if so, how much? That's really what I got to try to ask, right? Because it's not clear to me at all, right? I know it's mandated, but surely to goodness, with what's happening, we should be getting more money, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. That is the goal.
You know, not the next day or so, but get back and just say, here's what we get right now. And generally speaking, if this goes through at 75%, here's kind of sort of what we'll get, right? And that's all I'm asking. Thank you. Or maybe you should, whoever wanted that, or two counts.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bray.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, I was going to ask Dave if, so what I understand is this means that we will have to have our own separate system for all the exclusion entities in our municipality. So again, I guess that's going to make a difference in staffing probably in that way. And I gather from the 4% contamination rate, we're also going to have to be checking more carefully as to what goes in and what doesn't. So that looks like that's going to be a big area for staffing as well. But Dave, one question I have is, do they start paying for this CMO? Do they start paying as soon as we start the 18-month period, or is it after they take over completely?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. To start off, we are continuing business as usual. That's the plan at the landfill. Province-wide, there is going to be a messaging, province-wide messaging that should be standardized, which is it's what we've been looking for in the waste industry for a very long time. So people in Toronto will get the same messaging as the people up here. So when people come from Toronto up here, the message is the same. It shouldn't be different. This is what's acceptable in the Blue Box program, where you are and where we are and where everybody is. That's the standard messaging. That being said, that may be very good messaging, and we may get to our targets very quickly and easily. Right now, it's a problem. The way the recycling is done is different in Toronto than it is here. You've got one stream, two stream, no stream. There's a variety of ways of doing it. What's collected, what's not collected.
Turn off the second bedroom.
So we will continue to collect from everybody. We may have some rollback from these non-eligible sources. So if we do have some campsites or other sources here, there may be a rollback on what they pay us. So let's say from the 100%, they roll it back a percentage because we have so much of that. And it's agreed upon number that we go through MPAC. So through our MPAC, a percentage of our households compared to campsites, we come up with a percentage. So let's say we come up with 15%, which is less than 25. Then we continue on collecting from there. We just have that 15% rolled out. That being said, and I think I may have missed your last point there. Should have wrote it down. Sorry, would you mind repeating your last question there, Councillor Bray?
Oh, yeah, sure, that's not a problem. My question is, does CMO start paying when we have this transition period from July 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2025, and then they take over full responsibility in January 2026? That 18 months, do they start paying us then, or are we still responsible the whole time for collecting?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for repeating that. I apologize. Yes, so on that date, July 1st, that's the date it switches from Waste Diversion Ontario being responsible now to CMO being responsible. CMO will then pay us that day for those 18-month period. So we're happy. We're going ahead of some other people, which are going 6 months later, or even later than that. So that it's good for us because we have, hopefully we're going to get more money for our services. That's the way it looks right now.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Woods, have a question?
Not really a question, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to thank David for his report. And, to me, we all knew that this was coming, right? Joe McEwen and I last term went through a lot of work with some staff members when it came to changes at the landfill. We've all been kind of waiting for this day. Let's hope it works out in the best interest for the taxpayers and our pocketbooks.
Thank you. And just a couple of things. I mean, and again, what I'm really trying to do is to try to figure out how it's going to impact us and kind of when. What I understand you said, just to start with what the landfill site looks like, essentially, we're still going to be collecting materials for recycling in the compactors that we have. We don't need to replace the compactors. Essentially, what's different is that when those are taken away, they go somewhere else. And they get, and potentially at the end of the day, we get more money for what's inside them than we, is that a fair statement?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. It's that's a very simple way of putting it. There could be some other minor change, could go to a single stream. Now we have 2 streams, so something like that may occur. But yeah, essentially you're correct. You've said it very well. I appreciate that. I should have put,
So, and then if I can go sort of from there to the comment you made about trying to get uniformity on what's recycled, and there was a lot of discussion in the design phase of this about this that I listened to. But to use your example, in Toronto, styrofoam is recycled. So styrofoam goes in what is a gray, what's actually a gray bin. And by the way, the gray bin contains both the glass and plastics and the paper and the metal and all that kind of thing. There's like, you know, but right now we don't recycle styrofoam at York Street or Wall Road. So so as of our transition, the start of our transition date, there will be some new instructions to people. Is that a fair statement? They'll where you'll put things at the landfill site is going to change for some items.
absolutely. And we hope that that messaging will stay clear across the board, across Ontario for a very long time. That's
what
what I
about
hope.
metal, for example, because metal, well, small pieces of metal, I'm not talking about refrigerators or, you know, big shop tables or something, but small pieces of metal just also go in that gray bin in Toronto. What will they get into the compactors here and go through diversion, or will they or will we still have a separate like metal pile?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will. So Waste Diversion Ontario, they ran a little bit looser than what I think Circular Materials will. Circular Materials has been advocating for years to only have the identified packaging products go into the blue box. So your wrappers, your cardboard from, let's say, Walmart, you've got your Pepsi or Coke products, all these packaging products that are there, they are part of the blue box program and they're covered under these costs. Items such as just steel, that's not packaging, that's not part of the program, and that's not part of it. And there's been a long fight from these producers stating that they don't want to pay for it. So those are some of the things that are going to be cleared up in the messaging that we hope for. So it was always a question at a lot of landfills, I know ours too, is this recyclable? Can it go into the bins or compactor bins? And usually the answer is if it's recyclable, we put it in there. The new messaging will be, is it part of the blue box program? Should it go in there? And that messaging will be a lot clearer, I believe, going forward. There's going to be a lot of things that will be clarified, I think, quickly, and the messaging will stay the same. So we will still have our metal pile. It may even grow. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Well, just you know, this is, I think, is my final question. Just to be clear, I understood your reply to a question of Councillor Gray's. We don't have to for the ineligible materials, that is materials that come from the sources that are not, you know, the campsites and commercial, industrial and so on. We don't have to segregate that at the landfill. We just have to have an agreed upon percentage. Once we establish the percentage, it all just goes in with everything else. It's just that we don't get paid back for it. Is like we don't have to get somebody else to pile it separately and get somebody else to take it away. Am I right in saying that?
You're absolutely right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Both options are acceptable to CMO. We can continue on as you described with an agreed upon number and just use the compactors as we do for ineligibles, or you can do the other option, which is have 2 separate piles. and deal with it separately. We are going to stick with the way we're doing it. We're going to get the agreed upon number, and we're going to continue to service our ratepayers. That's the plan.
Okay. So just, I just thought of one final thing, which is the contamination rate. We don't know, I think you said we don't know what it is. Are we gonna find out what it is and sort of get a sense of how far off we are the 4%? Is there a way for us to do that, or?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that number, that becomes, as we get closer to 2026, I think that's the time when we really look for that information. As they start to drill down, like when they start off, my understanding is CMO may not be entertaining this 4% to the first 18 months. The first year for sure, they've told me that they likely won't even look at it. But then as we get closer to the full transition, that's when it'll become more of an issue. At that point, if we're still doing our compactors, there's the option to have an audit done, as you described. We could simply have our bin taken away, busted open, separated with percentages, and given to them, and then we could use those numbers.
But waste diversion doesn't tell us what our current contamination rate is, right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, there's just a guesstimation. The way it works is the roll-off bin gets taken to the receiving facility in Bracebridge. It's a large concrete floor where it's dumped out on. It's dumped out with other roll-off bins that are all dumped out. The loader comes along and picks up whatever it can and then carries it over to this hopper, which feeds a conveyor belt. This conveyor belt then goes up into much like a trailer, like a tractor trailer. Inside there's a variety of sorting. Old school sorting, you've got a magnet for the metals, any magnet for aluminum. You've got different people in there sorting by hand the glass out, other people that are responsible for plastics and a variety of items, all these different ones by hand. They're sorting them out. If they get missed, then they come back again. So loader it gets kicked out the bottom, and the loader picks it back up and throws it back in. You get a variety of things in there. You get shoes. I've seen lots of shoes and other items in there. Peanut butter is an excellent one to contaminate a whole batch of recyclables, good recyclables. Yogurt's another one that contaminates quite well. Someone throws one of those peanut butter yogurt in there, that really contaminates it. So they're going to start looking at a lot of things. We're going to get better messaging across Ontario.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to drag this on too long. I guess we're going to get signs that say no more peanut butter at York Street, right? No more peanut butter jars. All right, are there any other questions for David? Good, thank you for the reports. Very, very interesting subject. Anything else you want to ask? I see Manish has his hand up. Go ahead, Manish. Yeah, you got to turn it on first. Yeah, it's not, the mic itself isn't turned on at the back. Why don't you take Councillor Nash's, Manish, just to save time. It takes it a minute or two for it to come on.
So you.
Yeah.
Answer for Councillor Lamb's question, how much amount we are getting? It's a blue box, we are getting around 68,000 a year. Quarterly, we get 17,000. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. If there's nothing else, I will call the question. And this is on the motion to receive this report for information, by the way. So we're approving. Okay, thank you very much. All right. Did I do something wrong?
No, I just meant the same notes you do.
Oh, all right. Okay, so now we have This brings us to our donation part of the agenda. Yes, 9.2. Thank you. So I'll ask for a mover and seconder for the following, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report FIN -20.
So it's council remuneration is first.
9 point. Not donation. In the agenda, 9.2 is.
Resolution for 9.2.
Not in my agenda, 9.2 is donations. Or sorry, and in my order papers, it's 9.2. You got something different?
What was published to the public.
So council remuneration should be 9.2.
Yeah,
Is there,
for the public then.
should be a motion to be seen?
Okay, all right. No, it's no biggie. It's just
Okay.
in the agenda. Or the other way around. But look, not to worry. All right, we'll just move around. Okay, so this report then is council remuneration and expenses. Can I get a mover and seconder then that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report FIN -2023-03, which is the 2022 council remuneration and expenses for information. So moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Bray. Any discussion on this report?
Yeah, I just,
Go ahead, Councillor Van.
can never training being on here before, but maybe I've missed it. Certainly if people go out to conferences or have mileage and stuff like that, I know, but. So this is sort of mandatory. This training was. New council had some training with the integrity commissioners. Of course, he charged us. All it was training and asking questions, and getting information. I'm just surprised it goes on as.
Yeah.
Is it a statutory thing or?
I've never seen it before either,
Yeah.
to be honest. So, yeah,
Sort of inflates it to make it look like somehow.
go ahead, you're on. Thanks. Nisha's gonna respond.
Through you, Mayor. This also came to my integrity commissioner in the training. That's the reason I declared as an expense. It's not you don't need to declare as an income. But it's in a public information that's been council member has been trained by the integrity committee. Like, Mr. Mayor, would that mean that if we have a second training session, we reach out and talk to the integrity commissioner, that we have to keep track of the bill is very detailed, to see who's spoken to who when it becomes an expense? I believe with what we can, I believe with what Mr. Councillor Land had said, in that I would assume that integrity training, which is for everybody, we should be an expense of the corporation itself, because we didn't gain anything out of it. I would assume that expenses would be for things such as like road to or from something, anything that I'm getting reimbursed from the municipality, or where I don't think we're getting reimbursed for training that we had to do. I don't know, maybe I'd agree. I don't know if I can be looked at. I also mind that says I attended a seminar that municipality paid for on new councillor training. I wouldn't have thought it was an expense because it was one verse for it. I never laid out any money outside of my pocket for it.
Go ahead.
This all expenses paid by a municipality to the council member. It's not an expense reimbursed to the council member. It's a training cost, which is cost paid by a municipality. That is only declaring with the further section of the municipal act. It's only declaration to the public. It's information.
Okay, but I guess the question is, are these expenses that a counselor got reimbursed to go to travel somewhere to take the training? Or other expenses like that, or is it the cost that is paid to whoever it is that provides the training?
For instance, it's AMO, it's a training cost, travel cost, mileage. For instance, integrated commission cost is the payment paid to the integrated commission, or it will be subdivided into 5 individual people. And Roma, same way, it is also the fees, whatever the fees paid from the municipality.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, yeah, I'm only surprised, I guess, to see that the integrity commissioner was in here for the training he did, because I never, but I suppose it. Yeah. Typically, we haven't treated things like AMO and so on as training, but we do cover expenses for people who go to these meetings, but we don't, so, yeah, I mean, it's. Yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense. I don't know. It's just yeah.
This is the hill to die.
No, it's not.
But for instance, you have this $100,000 club in for employees in Ontario, right? Well, you don't go and say, whoever. The worst department manager made 100,000, plus he went to a conference for 5,000, and therefore it's 105,000, right? That doesn't form part of that. I've just never seen it before. And unless it's mandatory, I think it may give the false impression to people looking at it from the public, and that's my only concern, right? So if we don't have to do it, I would legislatively, I would request that training such as this not be included in the future. But if it's mandatory, then put it in ours.
I might agree with Mr. Mayor. I again agree with what Councillor Lamb has said. I think if I was to look at this, I would look at myself as an example. Your remuneration was $2,300, and yet you were paid an additional $1,600 reimbursement for stuff. In fact, that wasn't the case. So I would ask that maybe if this can be looked at, and if it's not mandatory, that it's unless it's expensive, we've submitted and be reimbursed back for example, kilometers to attend a conference, or if I stayed overnight somewhere, or whatever it might be. But if it's simply something the municipality paid for that we were not paid back, I think the way this reads is people would look at this and think that Mayor Comrie got an additional check for $3,600, and Councillor Nash got an additional check for $1,600, which isn't the case. So I think it's a little misleading. We're reading.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's noted. Anything else about this report? Okay, would you please indicate if you're in favor of receiving it? All right, thank you. That's carried. Okay, now we'll go to what's 9.3 in the package, which is the donations. And I'll ask for a mover and seconder for the following: that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report FIN-2023-02, which is the 2023 donation requests for information, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve the following 2023 donation requests. And There's a list that you have in front of you, which totals $7,450. $500 to the Rotary Club of Prairie Sound. $1,100 to the Prairie Sound Area Community Business and Development Center. $500 to the West Prairie Sound Health Center Foundation. $550 to the West Prairie Sound District Museum, which is the presentation we heard earlier tonight. $500 to the Prairie Sound Area Chamber of Commerce. $500 to the Dunchurch Agricultural Society. $3,000 to the Art Bay Community Club. $500 to the Prairie Sound High School bursary in the name of Louise Woods, which was established some years ago. Another $250 towards gifts for Whitestone graduates from the Prairie Sound High School, and $50 for the Whitestone Lake Central School Citizenship Award at our local school here. Would somebody like to move that, please? It's moved by Councillor Woods. Let's see, put it up here, and seconded by Councillor Lamb. Thank you. Discussion about these. Councillor Nash.
I just add quick little questions on it. I noticed the Whitestone Lake School Citizenship Award for $50. And I noticed the line above it, it says Prairie Sound High School Graduate Certificate of $250. And I know in total there's $11,000 donations here. Approximately 7,400, sorry. I'm just wondering, it reads at the bottom, annual contributions provided, no formal requests submitted. For the Whitestone School in our community, is there any way that maybe we can donate more than $50 to that, to the Citizenship Award, and make it the same as the high school, maybe $250? That would be a really nice little gift to the Citizen Award in our municipality. Then the only other comment I had was, I know that it said about the Rod and Gun Club that they might be applying for donation, or will be, for 500. I just might think that we include that in our numbers now.
Okay, thanks. Well, let's take them one at a time. These suggestions one at a time, I guess. I'm honestly trying to remember I can tell you the Louise Woods scholarship, which I have presented a few times over the years. That was an award that was established a long, as Councillor Lamb says, a long time ago, and that's I guess that's the amount that council agreed to at the time. So that's why it's one of these things that sort of carried on. The graduation gifts, that's a sort of a budget, and it depends on how many people there are from Whitestone who graduate at that high school, right? So I don't think it always, I think the amount that gets spent is might vary from year to year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if our CAO might know better. The Whitestone Lake School Citizenship Award, that was, there are some other awards that are given by different groups, and they're all sort of in that same amount, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know. This is not an argument about upping it, but I think the way the staff do is they make several, there are a number of awards, and they decide who gets them, but they're more or less equal. That's my sense of it from the presentations that I've attended in the past on them. But so I don't know. Anyway, anybody have other comments about, because we can certainly change these. Oh, and then there's the Rod and Gun. I don't know. Is there an appetite to add something for East? Manish, go ahead, please.
Through you, Mayor, I do receive the application after submitting this report. Yes, and then a formal application to for $500 request.
All right, so Whitestone Run, Vaughan. And they, so this was an application, so it doesn't need a star beside it. Can I test this just as a straw?
Can I make a comment?
Oh, please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm watching the comments online and Danny Fiscaldo has said that the citizenship award is $50. The others have increased over the years to $100. So I think that the suggestion is to move that to $100 to match others that have increased their amount.
Well, all right, well, then that was I think a good, perhaps a good suggestion. I think we probably want ours to be in the same. That's the case.
Certainly as the seconder, I would suggest it be 100 and also suggest we put in the 500 to the rod gun.
So are there any other? I'm looking around at nods at the table. Is there any other? Well, sorry, you're the mover, Councillor Woods. Do you support the?
I stand with both of those, yeah, switching the citizenship award up to $100 and then the $500 for the Rod and Gun Club for sure.
So that's going to bring, by the way, that is going to bring that total to now 70. Sorry, 75. It's going to bring it to $8,000. Am I right? Somebody who's better.
I would suggest though, I guess when we get into the budget tomorrow, that we leave it at 10,000 for budgetary purposes in case, been on council long enough, but I know 2 months from now, it's gonna be another request. And if we put in the earmark at 8,000.
Okay.
Right, so I think we should leave it.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to see what we've done to the total, so.
The only other thing I would comment on is, and again, this is no disrespect to Louise Woods' family, but I was on council 15 years ago when Louise passed away or that time, and this was set up. I don't think it was ever meant to be set up as a lifetime in her name, right? I think that at some point, maybe not this year, you have to look at or perhaps there's some other name in the community. Again, I can think of Mayor Armstrong, for instance, who passed away, right? I'm not suggesting it be him, but there may be other things. I just, whenever you have bursaries for people that have passed away, then you buy a bench, it's for 10 years, and then it sort of, dies out sort of. So again, I'm not suggesting we change that tonight, but I think it shouldn't be here 50 years from now. The amount should, but I think the name could be different. And sorry to the Woods family if they're on the lines.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a fair comment.
The only other comment that I would is, and this isn't a Hills guy, and the economic development, the Perry Sound Area Community Business and Development Center. I'm sort of stunned that we're paying $1,100. I think if I remember, McKellar's paying $550. And I think our Capella is not paying anything. And Perry Sound paying 20, I thought it was 2,900 or something like that. So it just seems disproportionate that Whitestone would pay that amount. But again, we're not talking a lot of money, so it's not equivalent. Rotation. Thank you.
You have the table.
Correspondence.
Oh, that's where it is. Okay.
I saw it somewhere in the other place.
Page 84. Yeah, on page 84 of your package, Archipelago, Township of Archipelago, 2000.
Well, someone was,
Carling, nothing, McDougal,
Carling.
2000. McKellar, it looks like nothing in 2022 or 2021. Perry Sound, 2,900, Sealand, 4,000. Whitestone, 1,100, Magnetawan, 1,000, so we're close to the bottom of the heap next to Magnetawan. I guess.
that's, okay. I mean, again, I'm not suggesting necessary to change.
Okay, well, thank you. Are there any other comments about this? These suggested donations?
For you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I have one last question. It was in regards to the presentation we had today, and I'm not suggesting anything changed for this year. But I noticed in the presentation from the West Perry Sound Museum that the numbers that they had for donations. Archipelago was 35,000, Carling was 39,000, McDougal was 18, McKellar was 10, Perry Sound was 43, Sagan was 22,000, worth $550. I'm just wondering why our number, there must be, maybe there's a background story for another meeting, but our number seems very, very low compared to the other 6 municipalities. Again, it doesn't need to change for this year. Maybe that's something we can look at for other years.
Yeah, okay, that's a good, that's a good. Councilor Lamb?
Yeah, it's the sector. I have no problem if we wanted to raise that to $1,000. Right. If that's the appetite of council. I don't think we should be going $35,000. I'll guarantee you that. So, but if they ask for $550, in fairness, you know, there are lots of stuff in the museum that relate to Whitestone. You know, the McPhees, for instance, have a lot of stuff in that museum. So, I would, you know, I would certainly support $1,000 instead of $550. If the mover would agree to that. Not me to run the meeting. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I could agree to that, Mr. Mayor. If that's what council feels would be best, we could order that to $1,000 mark. I'd be okay with that for the museum.
Okay, thank you. If there's no objection, we
She did
can,
such a great job. We nearly doubled the money she asked for.
I've penciled in 1,000 or written in 1,000. I made mention when Nadine was here that the fact that there are some West Perry Sound mayor colleagues who are on that on the board, and I know have put a lot of effort. Now the municipalities that they represent perhaps have more money than we do, but certainly, but I wouldn't be surprised if what they've done, like Archipelago, for example, has probably gone and raised some funds. They've had some projects that they did with the museum, and they've raised some funding from some of their individual ratepayers who chose to support that. I have a hunch there's something like that going on, but in any case, it is a good. It is an interesting facility for anybody who's not gone and seen the program, and I haven't been recently, but I think it's an asset to West Perry Sound for sure. So anyway, okay, so if I can just recap, unless are there any more comments? If I can just recap, then we have the Rotary Club of Perry Sound at $500, the Perry Sound Area Community Business and Development Center at $1,100, West Perry Sound Health Center Foundation at $500, West Perry Sound District Museum at $1,000, Perry Sound Chamber of Commerce $500, Church Agricultural Society, 500, Art Bay Community Club, 3,000. The Perry Sound High School Bursary, the memory of Lise Woods, $500. The Perry Sound High School Graduation Gift Set, $250. The Whitestone Lake School Citizenship Award at 100, and the Whitestone Rod and Gun Club at 500. So that would bring us to 8,450 if you added all those numbers up on this page, and Councillor Lamb has suggested, I think we perhaps have in our draft budget 10,000. So that's where we're at. Are you ready for the question on those donations? All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, that then brings us to item 11, business matters. And there are two of them, two business matters. The first one is a report from yours truly regarding it's titled Community Center Audiovisual Improvements Update. It's really what it really is it's the balance of the work that we contemplated doing here in this hall back when we originally started this. Really back at the start of the pandemic was, if you and I've for the benefit of those of you who maybe don't remember the details, I did provide you with some sort of history on what we did accomplish. But essentially, there are 4 resolutions that are necessary to complete this work. And anyway, I'll read the suggested motion and see if we can get a mover and seconder. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone received the briefing note from Mayor Comrie dated May 21st, 2023, regarding completion of audiovisual upgrades at the Dunchurch Community Center, and that the municipality proceed to complete the proposed system upgrade as set out in the briefing note in the current fiscal year, and that the municipality award the contract for supply, installation, and commissioning of the additional audiovisual equipment set out in this report to Acclaimed Sound and Lighting of North Bay, which is the vendor of the existing system, on a single source basis. And finally, that the sum of $40,000, including HST, to cover the cost of this work, be included in the municipality's 2023 capital and special projects budget. And I'm not sure if there's, but I'm sure our CIO can tell us if there is. In fact, I think there is something for this in the draft budget that we're going to see tomorrow. But anyway, those are the motions that I have for you. Is there a mover and seconder? I got a mover and seconder. Okay, Councillor Bray moves. Is there a seconder? Councillor Woods. All right, thank you. All right, so I think receiving the report is probably a no-brainer. I guess the question is, and by the way, I would refer you, there's a bit of detail there, but I would refer you to the rationale section. The question is, why do we want to do this? Essentially, the situation that we're in right now is that we have, for hybrid meetings like this and other functions that might maybe involve the same sort of thing, people in this room, people remotely, we are covering the audio pretty well. But but we're not really covering the video very well. The people in this room cannot see what's, you know, if there's anything, if there were anything to be presented on a screen, you can't really see it very well. The best we've been able to do is to try to put things on the TV over there. The main cost associated with this is to mount a screen, which would go on those, you could see those plywood squares that are up on the wall there. So behind us, there would be a screen approximately 9 by 16, which is a, you know, a kind of a theater screen type resolution, and a projector mounted, a data projector mounted on the other side of the wall, probably above that wooden box that has the TV in it. And it would project onto that. So if there's a movie being shown in here, that's how it would be projected. If there was, if there are people in the room that are watching our proceedings or whatever, they would be able to see effectively a Zoom screen, so they'd be able to see who it is that's participating, if people are participating remotely. And if somebody's up there, like Nadine was earlier doing a presentation, her slides would show on there. And so that's the main part of it. The other part is to have a camera that would accurately pick up this table around here and the presenter, if we have one, and convey that to the people on Zoom, because right now the only thing that they can see on Zoom is me. Right, so that's really, if you're asking me, well, why are we doing this? That's the completed, and the objective, I think, was that we came up with originally was, it is stated pretty succinctly, was that everybody who's participating, whether they're remote or present in this room, could see and be seen by everybody else, and could hear everybody else and be heard by everybody else. And basically that's what it would, this is what it would take to do that. And of course there has been a requirement in the for a long time with the Recreation Committee wanting to show movies. Back in the day, pre-pandemic, there were movies shown here, but they were done using portable equipment that was brought in. And it's fairly, it can be done that way, but it's fairly expensive and there's a fair bit of setup involved. So this would essentially be a permanent installation, like the sound system that we have. So it's here ready to use when you need it. So anyway, I won't belabor it, but if there are questions, I'm happy to try and answer them. Questions or comments? Floor is open. Councilor Woods.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. You've obviously put a lot into this. I appreciate the report. The one section talking about the notebook, the Chromebook portable computer for each, which was your original intention, but then we got the allowance for an electronic device. Could we not still do that, or is that completely out of the question? I don't. I just.
Well, there are a couple of issues with that, which we knew about at the time. The concept was that the people sitting here at the tables, everybody would have a laptop in front of them. And that, you know, we talked about that a long time ago, right? But previous councils talked about, well, maybe someday we would get away from the paper and people would have laptops. So I kind of understand that there's lots of reasons for wanting to do that. But essentially each individual would be using the camera in front of you, would be picking you up. So you would end up being on this, for people who are on the Zoom call, they would see a tile. The problem with that is as follows, okay, there's there would be some, it would be necessary in some way or other to network these devices together and have them feed into Zoom as a single device. And if you don't do that, what happens is you get you experience what's called latency, which is a time delay between the what's going out onto Zoom and what's coming back. And I don't know if any of you noticed this, but at a previous meeting, we had Councillor Nash had put a laptop over there and connected it to the TV. And I don't know how many of you saw this, but when we were playing the national anthem, okay, what it was doing, it was connected to Zoom. So it's getting the feed that comes from this computer right here in front of me, goes out to Zoom. It was getting the feedback like somebody else out in the community connected to Zoom. And we're singing "Oh Canada," we're singing the "Oh Canada," and or we're singing "Our Home and Native Land." And what's on the screen is still "Oh Canada," right? The words were not keeping up with this because why? Because they're going out into the ether and coming back. And the only way to get around that is to have the feed going out integrated from all the laptops. And I think we thought, okay, this is something we could do because we could connect them together if they were all the same. And I mean, you would still have would have had the laptop at home, but once that decision was made and people are now buying different kinds of devices. So my concern is that if they're connected together, what people will see, not only will you see in the room, but people out there will see some lag between your voice and your image. Now, I mean, it's not debilitating, it's annoying, I guess, it's because it can literally be a second or so behind. And the only solutions that don't do that are the broadcast video ones. And if you think 40 grand's a big budget, you're talking 400 grand to do a broadcast video. So I mean, we didn't consider that. So that's kind of the reason. That's why as soon as the decision was made, we'll let people buy different kinds of equipment. I thought, okay, there's also, by the way, an argument for having a camera anyway, because the camera, there are things where you might want to stream the whole proceeding or something at some point in time. Well, you really need a camera to do that. You can't do that with a whole bunch of Zoom connections. Did that?
Yeah, no.
All right. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Councillor Nash.
Thank you. I think we all have a few questions, but it was something you said at the beginning. I would have thought that we were putting the screen together, it would have been for if there was a presentation by a presenter, the people were on Zoom, if John Jackson was on the call and people were going through the items on a planning matter, that there would have been a big screen that the council could have seen it too. From what I'm understanding, it's going to be mounted behind us, but not sure what, how would I say this, what council would get out of the screen behind us, when very often we only have one or two, or tonight we have one person in the audience. I would have thought it would have been the other side of us so we could have seen. That was just something on what was said there. In regards to latency, I know, unfortunately, my son plays video games, tournaments and these video games, and it's all about the computer you have, lower the latency, the quicker you press a button and somebody moves. But I know he's playing with 1,000 other people online. And it's all in the latency of our internet system. So I think a lot of that latency wouldn't be on our devices, would be more, unfortunately, where we have the community center and the infrastructure here is probably the latency will get through fiber optics or the computer we have. But just when I was going through this, Those were just a couple comments. But when I was going through this, I guess I look at, which will be coming up tomorrow, but our budget and the amount of deficits and loans and taking out of the reserves we're doing, and sitting here going, there's a 40,000 give or take budget here for a movie screen and a video camera. And I think we can go on Zoom as we are tonight without a video camera. I don't know if people need to see close as all the counselors speaking. I do think a screen, which we had set up before, would help when, you know, if there's a presentation for a planning item, or somebody's doing a presentation like they did tonight, it can be shown. But $40,000 for a municipality, in my eyes, seems like an awful lot of money. When I know we're gonna have to be fiscally responsible in our budget. And then when it came down to sole source, I just can't understand why we'd be sole sourcing a $40,000 sound system for the rationale that we're given because they did preparatory work, the mounting things, I guess, that were pointed out. That there's little competition for the contractor and that the equipment needs to be integrated. And I guess I would say any audio visual company could integrate into the existing system. The fact that there's items already put up here, I don't think matters if it's going out to tender. And I know anything over $30,000 has to go through a complete tender process. And I know sole sourcing could be done, but I do think there is a lot of competitors that would be more than happy to do a job like that, be it from North Bay or from Toronto or from Barrie or from Aurelia. I think there's a lot of areas out there. So I think even if this was to be done, I would say that it's something that would have to go out to tender. And I don't think $40,000 is my eyes, is reasonable at this time. I would say maybe, you know, if we're going to spend a couple $1,000s or something on a new TV screen, and a more realistic projector than a $10,000 projector. So I won't be in support of this at this time because I just think it's too much money, and I believe it should have gone through a complete tendering process.
Okay, well, yeah, my only response is there are lots of companies who do this. They're all in Toronto pretty much. I mean, you're not going to get closer ones. There's no reason that it couldn't be tendered. I guess other than the fact that it takes time, but I guess if you're I think you're and it doesn't matter to me personally if you find somebody else you know that has a better price. No, obviously the system is still integrated to some extent, so you run into the situation when you have multiple vendors of these things that when you call for support, you got people saying, "Oh, that's not my problem. That's the other guy's problem," right? So it makes it, I think, you know, a bit challenging for our staff. But that's probably the only argument. My suspicion is that you won't, because we're remote from the folks down south. We probably won't find. This is a pretty specialized business. Yeah, there's lots of AV shops that will sell you the equipment, and you know, but then you have the responsibility. I could go out and buy the equipment cheaper than that, and I'd have to integrate it. And when that's, you know, I don't really want that responsibility. I want somebody else to take responsibility for that. I think we all want somebody else to take responsibility for that. So, and that's why we simply followed on the way we are, but there's no. When you are projecting across a room like this, you're using a high-end projector with a long lens, and the lens costs as much as the projector does, because otherwise, a projector on that, if you just went out to your AV shop and bought a projector and stuck it over there, it would fill this whole entire wall from one end to the other and have to be up on the ceiling and have to be on the floor, and you wouldn't be able to see it, right? You've seen them in conference rooms and so on. They're designed, like if you had a normal screen up here and you put the projector on a card out there, it would be in between those chairs in the front. In fact, in front of those chairs in the front row. That's just the standard lens that they come with. So you have to buy a long throw lens, right? Which is and it's not a good idea to be trying to do it with, in my experience, trying to do it with portable equipment, because now you got cables lying around and you know, I think a permanent solution is better, but yeah, those are my comments to the objections. I think if you as far as counselors being able to see, presumably everybody, I guess counselors are not mandated by this policy that we passed a while ago, but I'm assuming that everybody is going to end up with a laptop. Am I correct? If you had the laptop, you could connect to Zoom and you could put you could have the screen, the Zoom screen there, and you could make it full screen. So if somebody's doing a presentation or John Jackson's on remote on Zoom, you can watch that presentation on the screen in front of you if you want. There's nothing to stop you from doing that.
When they watch on a laptop in front of me and they have a $40,000 TV screen behind me, which is 20 times the size of my screen. And I think
well, I suppose we could turn ourselves around, right? One way or the other. You got to make one side of the.
I don't want to debate it. I don't
Yeah.
think a wide expenditure of $40,000 given the economic. Obviously,
Okay, fine. I appreciate your comment. Are there other comments that people have? Councilor Knapp.
Yeah, I know several, so, let's go back to when we first, went down this route of audio visual here in the community. We spent 25,000. This is 40, so we would have a system where $65,000, which I think is enormous. And I don't think it's unfair to say the system that we have, that's the audio part of it. Certainly the speakers work, and when people talk, you can hear the speakers. But these microphones have been trouble from the very first day that they got me. And half of them sometimes don't work. Manish couldn't get on tonight. They're very difficult. And I'm not suggesting we go out and replace them. But this system that we did with the claim, in fact, take it was with the claim, is less than satisfactory in my mind, okay, from an audio standpoint. Again, not the speakers, they come through very well, right? So some of the work was done, was very good. I think $40,000 is like buying a Ferrari, and I don't think we need a Ferrari. I don't need someone to say, Councilor Lanham is speaking, and there's the mic, there's the video, or seeing me. I think if we have any kind of camera, it should be camera mounted somewhere that just pans, you know, the whole council table, right? And people will hear the audio, which is the important part, not the video part. So
That is what's proposed, by the way. It's a camera.
I realize.
I'm not suggesting you use this camera to pick you up. I'm suggesting you use a camera over there.
I realize,
Yeah.
but I just think that there's way too much. I don't like single sourcing. I think it leads to particularly the people know it's single sourcing. It leads to us paying more than we should. And And again, please, I'm not a technical person, probably going to disagree with this. But I did send the proposal, it's in the agenda. I did send the proposal to someone that I trust who's in the field, okay? And I'm going to read the response that I got. And again, I don't want to get into a technical debate on it, but it just points out to me why we certainly shouldn't just take this and say, let's put 40 grand in and away we should run. The comments that came back was the projector is old and discontinued. It does not project widescreen as we are all used to. It's 4.3, which was phased out 15 years ago. Amazon has it for $47.95, and the quote is $76.56. The zoom lens might be able to be redundant if we did not buy such an old unit. Newer units have this feature. Mount for it could easily be sourced for $75, not $750. Screen is very good quality, but it's marked up by 2 times retail. Cabling is 4 times overpriced, and $1,000 for freight is crazy. A Toronto company could easily be sourced for probably 1/2 to 2/3 with new appropriate equipment and less cost. The cable, the Cat6 cabling should be around $300, not $1,000. Mileage is constantly in the quote, totaling almost $700. I won't read the next lines. They are also charging to upgrade the system they installed 2 years ago. Their products are 2 to 3 times more than retail, and for older material. So, having said that, I don't trust at all the $40,000. And I think you will find that there are people in Toronto, there's other ones, maybe Sudbury or somewhere else. But what I think we should be doing and should have done, and I appreciate all the work the mayor has done on this, is I think the IT person should be coming to council and saying, what exactly is it that you want as a council? What is it? The IT person should take away and then write a spec for us. That's his job. He's a consultant for us, right? And once that is written, we then go out with a proper quote to 3 or 4 or 5 places, and we get what we want. Okay, and I don't, again, the mayor has done some work, but I think we're being, I won't say taken, that's the wrong word. I just think they've overpriced it and said, hey, we're single source, let's go for it. I also think the community would go berserk if they thought we're spending $65,000 in this community hall for an audio visual system. And I don't think it's on, it's certainly not on for me. But if we do it all right and get good quotes 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months from now, maybe you put it in next year's budget, or maybe you put an earmark this year for 5 or 10 grand to do something. But I'm certainly not going to vote to put 40,000 in the budget and away we go. Claim, sign the contract, and away we go. I just don't think it's right. And again, I appreciate the work you've done, Mr. Mayor. I don't know much about this stuff, but I do know when it doesn't add up to me. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, well, I only have 2 comments, and the first one is about the microphones themselves. And you notice that I'm using a different kind of microphone, but those microphones have been programmed into the digital board in such a way that you need to be no more than about 6 inches away from the mic.
And isn't that terrible for 25 grand or whatever?
No, it's not. Here's the problem, okay? If you hear me talking right now, you can hear a reverb. Why? Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mics open. The more mics you have open, the more reverb you've got. if I I can turn the volume up so that you can sit back in your chair like that and it'll pick you up. But you're gonna hear it ringing. Do you hear it? Move back, you're getting more ringing all the time. That's really annoying to people after a period of time, and the only solution that there is. That I know of is to have everybody with lapel mics, and so, you know, you get up.
That's what we have. That's what we have. We had those things. Like the one-
I know, but folks, you're forgetting something. At the time that we were working on this, we went around and asked everybody, and they said they wanted, the council of the day said, we want the microphones to be on the stands. That wasn't my decision. That was council's decision.
So, council.
I don't know, but I did what you asked, you know, you just made an argument that we should ask the councilors that they all want. If it had been up to me, we would have had a bunch of lab mics, but we got a couple of lab mics because people who are walking around up there presenting need them or moving back and forth constantly, but the way the thing was set up is so that the mic could stay on all the time. And when you want to speak into it, you either pull it close to you or you move or you lean forward. And the reason that it's not picking you up is because you're, instead of like 5-6 inches away, you're a foot to 15 inches away. And if you speak softly, it won't pick you up. If you talk loudly like I do, you can hear it.
$25,000, and we did spend $25,000 on the mics, obviously, it was part of the system. It doesn't work. You know, I can remember when we said we wanted mics, I had suggested that there be one mic between two councilors, and you just simply hit a button on, you hit a button off, and that's all it is. And I never said get individual ones that go off and hum and do all kinds of stuff. I doubt there's a meeting that we've gone through that we haven't had at least one issue with these mics. And you're the technical person, I'm not. And if we shouldn't have done this, then I would have thought you come back to council and say, we shouldn't do this, shouldn't spend all this money on it. Like, again, I'm not a technical person, but you know, we got to live with the mics. We're not going to go out and source those things again, but surely Acclaim should have or could have told us this, right? Like they were the contractor. I guess we could go on and on. I just don't want to replicate it and go, you know, have a camera and movie projectors that are tens of thousands of dollars. Like, I just don't think it's needed. I mean, for goodness sakes, you go buy 100-inch television, put it on that wall. That's really good quality. If you wanted to, probably pay $3,000. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just over the top.
Yeah.
I think it's over the top, and I don't think it's needed. I don't know what exactly is needed, but this is, in my opinion. And I appreciate the work we've done on it.
Yeah, well, okay, I guess. I mean, I'm not surprised that people saying, well, you know, you should try to check pricing, and I would be the first person. I already said to you, yeah, I mean, if I went out and tried to source the equipment myself, but then I'm stuck with integrating it, right? Right?
But they should,
You know,
inflating it 2 or 3 times.
Hmm?
They shouldn't be inflating the retail cost 2 or 3
Yeah.
times because it's
Well,
sourced.
Well,
And then I say, oh, God bless you, you know, that's not on in my work.
yeah, well, I'll tell you what.
That's true.
You know, here's my only question to you. Okay, we can go to tender. And see if we can get a better price, and maybe we can. But the real question is this: if you do get let's say it comes in instead of 40,000, it comes in at, I don't know, 30,000 or something. What I'm hearing is, well, we don't know if we would spend it in this year anyway. So the thing is, if you get a tender, if you get a quote, the quote's good for a certain number of days, because these prices and deliveries are really volatile on this stuff. I'm not kidding you. And you know, so if we did a tender now, we would be annoying the marketplace unless we're prepared to actually go ahead and buy whoever gives us the best quote, right? If we wait till next year, then we'd have to go tender it again. If you put it in 2024 budget or 2025 budget. And the only other thing I'm gonna say is that, like, we cannot use, I don't care how big a flat screen TV you got. You can only use that for a small group of kids on the floor. If you want to have an adult movie in here, I mean, not an adult movie, but a movie for an audience. Sorry, no, we don't want a movie for an audience of adults. Sorry. If you want to have that and you want to have people sitting around, once you get off to draw yourself a 30-degree angle on each side. Once you get off there, you can't see the screen properly.
Worth $40,000 to show a movie in the community center. It's not. The citizens don't want that. They don't want, when inflation is 6 to 7%, to say, boy, if you want to see a movie, come to the community center and have a Ferrari. They don't need that. They don't want that. And
the rec committee stopped showing them because we didn't, we really didn't have the facilities to do it. Until we do get the facilities to do it, it's not going, I mean, I think the answer is no, we're not going to do it, other than the odd time they'll do it for kids using that device there, which is fine, but if you've only got 10 kids, yeah, sure, not a problem. Anyway. Councilor Bray.
Yeah, thank you for this report. I have been in the McKellar Community Hall and I have had to do presentations there. And I do find that their system is quite good and it was quite easy for us to be able to connect. And for any big presentations, having a screen and having the projector like that, it is extremely helpful. I'm not sure about kids' movies, but I have no idea because I haven't been to anything here for that, but I think that maybe not this year, like maybe this is something we need to go out and maybe get some more information and get some quotes and things like that. But I do think that in a way, if we want to rent this hall for meetings and having people come in, that a lot of times they do expect to have the AV equipment available. So I think it's something to think about. I'm not saying we go out and do it right away. I'm not saying we use this specific estimate here that's before us, but I do think that we need to think about in terms of maybe looking at what it is, what other things we might be able to see some income coming back into the municipality for the use of this room for things like mini conferences, meetings and things like that, where people would use that kind of equipment. And I would say that I would certainly be happy to see us go out and look at a few more quotes, just because I think it's important to make sure that we are getting really good value for the money. And I'm not sure if our IT person, if that's his role to assess something like this, or to assess what we want and give us a little bit more help in figuring out what would be the best route for our municipality. But I think we should be asking him if that is part of the work that we contract with him for. And again, I'm not sure if that fits. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I would just point out to you that our IT person, Daniel Varand, you're talking about, has been involved in various aspects of this. This is not his specialty. He doesn't do AV typically. He does computers. But for example, in the discussions about how we would interface because we're interfacing to Zoom and we're using computers to do it. In our discussion about how we would, if we were going to provide laptops for everybody, how we would do it and how we would connect them, all that sort of thing. He's been involved in all of that and provided some very, very useful input into what we were wanting. But I would point out to you that the product, again, if you have to look at it, I know the quote's very complicated and it's got a whole lot of detail in it. I thought twice about whether I would put it there or not, but because it's a little hard to read and understand. But nevertheless, there are essentially three things that are being provided. Well, four things, okay, there is a projector and a screen. There is a camera, a smart camera, which is not I mean, you can buy cameras for $300-400. They will not do what we need this one to do. You want one that's got, it's what I call a smart camera. And I've used them before. They're and you're buying besides those things, those are the main components, and the rest of it is just integration and installation, wiring and stuff. And yeah, I mean, you can buy a spool of Cat 6 for $79, right? I got one in my truck. It has to be run inside wire mold, right? In here, you can't just string those blue wires around the walls. You have to, so yeah, you get an electrician and he puts up the wire mold, to cover it over when you string it, right? We can't get into the ceiling, can't get into these walls, right? So that's why all this stuff, look, this is the stuff they're looking for, right? To provide power and to motorize the screen. Right. Anyway, I know we don't need to spend the whole night to debating that, but it's a bit facile to say, well, I can see somebody can say, well, I can get this stuff cheaper, but what we would have to do is we'd have to give them a quote and say, this is how this thing has to work, give them a spec, as has been said. And then when somebody's looking at making money on this, it's not just supplying the equipment. They got to figure out, okay, we're going to travel from Toronto to here to install it, and if we get a service call, we may have to come back again, right? 3-hour trip. So I'm just saying. But again, I guess what I would like, just for your, I mean, the last thing I want to do is spend time on this if nobody has any interest in doing it. If we don't, I think then we have to decide, well, when do you want to pursue it? And not like, I don't want to turn around tomorrow and try to get quotes for things if you're not gonna, if there's no way that you're willing to spend some amount of money. It could be maybe it's 30,000 or something, but still that's still a sizable amount of money in this budget year. I fully acknowledge that. Okay, Councillor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I might propose as a comment would just be, I think you said our IT guy isn't a specialist in this, and I totally understand that the TV or projector we buy today, in a year from now, it's obsolete in the world we're in. The screen we buy in 2 years will be obsolete. I don't think this stuff has a long life expectancy for the price we're paying. My personal opinion again is I don't think we need a super smart camera to pan the whole room. I know you can get like 120-inch LCD TV. I just Googled it and it was $5,000. I'm not saying it's the greatest quality, but maybe what you might think to do. I know, it's, like I said before, and I think others have mentioned, it's going to be a tight budget year. But have we thought to engage an audio video consultant, pay them whatever it is, $1,000 to come out here, put a specification together, which might be different than what's been done here. If our IT guy isn't a specialist in it, but get a AV consultant, give us a list of everything, puts it together, puts a little tender together for us. They go submit it to 4 or 5 places. We get prices back for it. Maybe we do something like that towards the end of the year. So that this time next year, we're looking at it with hopes it could be approved for possibly do something next year. But I think getting an audio video consultant and I think it would be important, maybe there's 2 options: price the Cadillac and then price the minivan. You know, kind of two options. Here's the off the line system you can do. And here might be a system that would still work for everything we need, that would be less the price. So when people are giving tenders or something, there's two prices that are given. Anyways, just my thoughts, but I do think maybe involving another professional as a consultant might help us down the road whenever this comes back.
It certainly could be done. Just a comment for your, and I mean, you are right in the sense that the equipment is changing constantly. I look after a building in Toronto, some of you know this, that has a setup very much like this. It has a motorized screen and it's the projector would be at that wall and the motorized screen is at the other wall. That system was installed and operational in January of 2007. It is still operating perfectly. And yes, there are new projectors that you can buy. But it was a high-end projector. It's not one of these throwaways that people use to do their little conference things, you know. It was when it was purchased, you know, probably a $4,000 projector and you know, it's still, you can still get lamps for it. It works perfectly. So, you know, this is not a throwaway. This is not, I don't want anybody to think for a minute that you spend $40,000 and next year you're going to have to spend another $10,000. This system, the components are chosen to have a lifespan, and they may not all be the latest ones, but they're ones that will operate in you satisfactorily for at least 10 years, and you'll be able to get parts for them in that time frame. And yeah, there'll be newer ones that are cheaper come out during that period of time, but it's not, you know, it had the expenditure. What I'm trying to say is the expenditure, the asset that you're buying has a reasonable lifespan. But I'm not, and not in the least opposed to having a consultant. I know some people who would come in and do something like that. They will charge us a fee, of course, you know. I mean, but not a huge fee to come here for a day, take a look, you know, wander around, take a look and say, yeah, here's what you could do. And they might come up with something that we didn't think of, but I mean, that's what I would point out to you. That's what we did with the folks in North Bay. They came and they looked at this numerous times and got drawings for the floor plan and all that kind of thing. Anyway, look, I don't want to prolong this. I take it, well, I guess I should put the question. I mean, really the acid test for this, to be candid, is the last item of this compound motion that I had, which was at the sum of 40,000 we put in the budget. So if you're not willing to do that, then the other things are kind of academic. We're not going to do it this year. We're not going to single source it. So, is there anything else anybody wants to say? Well, I call the question of.
Are we deciding whether we're going to put 40,000 in the budget on? Is that the question?
Well, you're deciding if you're going to do anything in this year, because there isn't.
Well, I think excuse me. I think what Councillor Nash said makes sense to me. Okay, that we spec it out properly. That we spec out maybe 2 systems, right? And we then go out and get pricing towards the end of this year, so that we can implement it early next year. I don't care if I want to put $10,000 in initial budget to board something, but I just get the idea we should probably go out and, you know, I think that consultant or whoever should ask council what they want. Yeah, I don't want camera in my face when I'm talking. Not important to me, but maybe it is to other people. And we spec it out, we go out, yeah, 3 or 4, 5 votes, away we go, and then it comes back and says, here's what you get for 20,000, here's what you get for 40 grand, here's, you know, whatever, I don't know. But I think we owe it to the taxpayers to go out and do that. So. It makes sense, but so I'm not gonna vote 40,000 here, that's the question. But.
Well,
Neither do I think it's a dead issue. We've got a complete project. I don't think anyone's saying, let's abandon it. What we've got is good enough. I don't think anyone's saying. There's,
Yeah.
I think what they're saying is, you know, 40,000 is a big expenditure and we don't think it should be single sourced and we think it should be handled differently. I think it's what they're saying.
I hope everybody understands, because I didn't mention this, but the $40,000 was actually in the 2022 budget, wasn't it? It was. We didn't spend it, and the reason we didn't spend it was because we were not able to get the details of how it would be done, and we had enough other issues kind of to deal with in terms of getting you know, working with a claim, trying to make sure that we want this working reliably, which, to be honest, I think it is. But by the way, those squawking noises that you used to hear, those are caused by turning a microphone on in the middle of the meeting. What they told us was you should turn the microphones on at the power, the ones on those mics, the little button on the back, you should leave it powered on. You can turn the button on the side on and off if you want, but if you activate a mic that has been previously dead, the first thing it does a little handshake with the box that's over behind the screen there, and that makes that noise.
Is that the little Tweety bird?
That's the Tweety bird. I could pull a mic out of the drawer and turn it on and show you, but anyway, we won't do it now. All right. So, do you want to move, like, if you want to provide some direction that's instead of this, that staff engage an AV consultant to produce a spec or whatever, and then that's something that we could act on, I think, if you want to do that instead of this. That's I'd
make that motion.
I'd like to make some, I'd be honest, I'd like to make some progress and try to finish this.
Let's.
We're kind of halfway, you know.
Yeah.
Councillor Woods.
I think that's a fantastic idea, Mr. Mayor. We should engage a consultant to put something together. One big reason is I don't think you should have to. Because I know you obviously put a lot of time into this, a lot of thought into this, and I don't think it's something we should have to do as mayor. Well, it might be something that you're interested in, but we want something done, then we should spend some money and get the person to do it, and free up some of your time to do the rest of your duties that you have to do as mayor.
No, that's fair enough. Councillor Bray.
Yeah, I'm in agreement of going ahead with getting a consultant. I think that would be a good thing for us to do this year and to look towards planning for 2024, really. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm gonna write something down here and then I'll just read it to you. That the municipality engage an AV consultant to produce a specification for purposes of tendering or the required equipment and installation to complete the community center AV system. How about that? All right, so we apologize. I'm just writing something down so that we can get them. So, well, I'll see if I think we should just probably just get another mover and seconder and let the other motion die, right? But, let them,
Just before you read the motion or drafting, can I say one thing?
I'm sorry,
Just before, I thought you were gonna read and.
I am, yeah,
Okay.
I am. That,
Do that.
I'm just saying, I now have, what I have is, we already had that the council received the briefing note, so you've done that. And then I took out the three things that are in the middle. And this one says that the municipality engage an AV consultant to produce a specification for purposes of tendering for the required equipment and installation to complete the community center audiovisual system. Is that fair enough?
I just say one thing first.
Yeah.
I was just trying to read on the June policy here, and I think what we want to say in there when you're rewording it is just that. If we're getting professional worker consultant, we want to ask for an RFPQ we conducted, so reaching out to a couple AV consultants to ask where they would supply us as their services and back to council to pick that consultant. I think that's the way you do it. Based on
Yeah, but you're doing an RFP to select somebody that's gonna charge you a couple $1,000s, right? I mean, well, I realize some people do it all the time, but keep in mind, the municipality has a very small staff to do this. And I don't know, I don't know who on staff is going to figure out what to put in the RFP, so. I'm afraid, notwithstanding what Councillor Woods just said, you're making it work for me, right? Because who's. You want to task the CAO to do this? Who's gonna do it? I don't know. I'm sorry, but I think you're making it unnecessarily complicated. If it was.
we come up with the roster of. That's or AV consultants if we're not involved in it, right? The whole reason is. You put out a quick little tender, you put it on something like Indigo or whatever, and people bid you back. There's a government websites, you put a tender out, most people come back, they're looking all the time, but. What people are looking for is a request for professional services, it comes back. This is what we charge you an hour, this is what we'll give you, and then. Council comes back and says, okay, and I'm sure it's gonna cost more than $1,000 for. A design. And something to do, but I think it'll save us maybe tens of thousands. Just my suggestion is all. I just wanted to say it before you ran it up, that was all.
Well, okay, I mean, we'll. I'm trying to protect staff here, but if you're gonna spend 10 grand on deciding who your consultant is. That's the 10 grand you were gonna save by tendering them. No, the whole thing, folks.
I guess the question, Mr. Mayor, how are we going to come up with solve? It's the real question.
There's industry lists of these people, okay? I mean, I can find you the list, right?
Who's going to decide that it's Tom, Dick, or Harry?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we could, I guess you could send, you can do what, usually called an RFQ, which is, not RFQ, a request for qualification. It is an RFQ, sorry, but you just say, look, we're looking for people to do this. You can start that. Everybody will send you a bunch of stuff. I mean, I don't honestly know how, if we brought it all into council, I don't know how you would decide who they are. You basically have to look at their reputation and who they did work for and everything, which, so you only need 3 or 4. I could easily come up with a list of names of people that have done work that I know of, that not necessarily for me, but have done work and that I'm aware of that, have a good reputation, and you could pick one, right? The staff could pick one.
Not thinking, sorry if I'm waiting through you, Mr. Mayor, if there's an industry list, I think there's that list, we send it out to them. I know many contractors too, and I know I put myself in very precarious spots. I said, why don't you get a quote from this company, that company, this company, and that company? I think we have to be really careful to do that, and if there's an industry list, we send it out, we ask for the RFQ, it comes back. Maybe some of us won't understand all of it, but we can then make an informed decision and say, based on the information in front of us, that doesn't cost us anything to do. Based on the information in front of us, we're gonna pick this consulting firm to write up a little tender for us, a proposal, and we'll send it out for tender and get prices.
Did you want to make a comment, Madam CAO? Sorry,
I do.
I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Nash might be surprised by this, but I do agree with you. Just to have some levity here. I think that between myself and Mayor Comrie, I'm quite familiar with the request for proposals, sort of the technical end of things, not something of this nature. But I'm thinking between myself and Mayor Comrie and Dan Hildebrand, who would also have something to offer. And he was involved in the McKellar process. So I think that it doesn't need to be a complicated request for proposal, and you scope it basically, and that's why it's called a request for proposal, because generally you don't exactly know what you need, you just have a sense of what you want the deliverable to be, and you state that. And through that, then there's an evaluation process, and you may have to interview the folks, you may have to see what they have to offer. I would ask them, you know, what other small communities have you worked with a similar setup that we do? So that's just my 2 cents, that I think that we could, and if this is moving towards a purchase in 2024, we have time to do an RFP, do an evaluation, or get the right RFP document in place, do an evaluation, and then kind of have a sense of where we need to go or where we need to be. And we may come full circle, you never know, but at least there'll be a comfort level of understanding what's the right thing for this particular room and the acoustics here.
As long as we end up with an A and a B, right, like, that's important in my mind anyway. At the end of the day, I want to say, here's A and here's what it'll give you for 20 minutes, and here's B at 40, and here's the differences, and here's, you know, you make the decision, right? Not just, we got together, wrote this, and here it is, it's 39,000, same quote as we have tonight, right? There's got to be a couple of things, right? A couple of things that we can debate, make a decision on.
Okay, so are you okay with what I wrote, with that understanding that what the CAO, this is instruction effectively to staff in this case, what you're doing, so. No, I'm going to ask. You know what I think I'll do is I'll ask, are the mover and seconder prepared to move this new motion as a replacement for the previous one? It's not truly an amendment because it's completely different, but it's.
Mr. Mayor, we have a motion on the table.
So do you want to defeat it, or?
You could simply walk away from it, but you need to do something with the motion on the table. Yeah, you can defeat it, and then you have another motion. It makes writing the minutes a heck of a lot easier, to be honest with you.
Well, how about, all right, so how about you withdraw the original motion? Is that, because that's an option, right?
That's an option.
The mover and seconder, you agree to withdraw the original motion. Okay, so I'm gonna write withdrawn beside what was here before. And I will once again, just for the benefit, everybody's benefit, read to you what's left. Okay, it is that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone received the briefing note from Mayor Comrie dated March 21st regarding completion of audiovisual upgrades at the Dunchurch Community Center. So you've already done that. And that the municipality engage an AV consultant to produce a specification for purposes of tendering for the required equipment and installation to complete the community center AV system. Perfect. Mover and seconder are good with that? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please indicate. All right, fine. We're good to go.
We take a 2-minute break.
Yeah, thank you. I was gonna ask that same thing.
You may.
Thank you.
We're gonna get back, and everybody's back at the table. We're gonna get back to our work and finish up before we have to do a curfew, maybe.
Perfect.
read
Thank you so much.
but,
Have a great evening.
So we've done with item 11.1. 11.2 is a matter that was raised previously regarding rezoning of Mr. Greenwood's property. So at 1686 Highway 124. I'll read the motion and ask for a mover and seconder. Whereas Mr. Ted Greenwood, in a letter dated November 15th, 2022, requested that council remove costs associated with rezoning a property owned by him located at 1686 Highway number 124 from rural to general industrial, that's RU to M1. And whereas in a report dated September 9th, 2022 from Mr. John Jackson, municipal planner, who has stated that it is reasonable to understand that the lands should have had an M1 zone. And whereas in the above referenced report from Mr. John Jackson, it was also stated that council should consider a proposed rezoning of the subject lands from rural RU to general industrial M1 without the attendant studies, site plans, and financial deposits. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive for information the memorandum from Paula McCree, Planning Assistant, dated March 21st, 2023, with the attached report from John Jackson, Planner, dated September 9th, 2022, regarding the Ted Greenwood rezoning matter for a property known as 1686 Highway number 124, Dunchurch. And that a zoning bylaw amendment application will be required to be submitted by Ted Greenwood for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment of part lot 44 concession A in the geographic township of Hagerman, being part 1, plan 42R-18200, municipally known as 1686 Highway number 124, Dunchurch, from rural RU zone to industrial M1 zone. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby waive the non-refundable administration fee in the amount of $1,000 as per the current municipal fees and charges bylaw. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby recommend that, subject to the receipt of a rezoning application from Ted Greenwood and the receipt of the applicable security deposit to cover any fees related to the work of the planning consultant in respect of the application, that staff proceed with the applicable advertisement and circulation of the notice of public meeting. Did you get all that? All right, is there a mover and seconder, please? I see Councillor Woods is moving. I have a seconder, Councillor Nash. Any discussion about this item? Councillor Woods. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. In reading the proposed resolution, I don't have any issues with it, except for the fact that I don't think Mr. Greenwood should pay anything. Reason being is, I can speak to this absolutely perfectly. Years ago, when the municipality was doing its rezoning bylaw, some of you might remember because you were on council and I was the loudmouth guy in the back. I sent in a list of over 50 properties to the municipality where people's zoning was automatically getting changed. And I seen problems with it. I also had a meeting with Mr. Jackson about it. And I stood up in this hall on the floor, actually right beside our fire chief, and said this to everybody, that there's properties that are improperly labeled and we need to fix that. Had I been living on Farley's Road at the time, I can assure you that this property would have been on that list that I handed into the municipality, because I went down the 520 every day in life and I opened up the maps and I looked at the zoning maps that Mr. Jackson provided, and I wrote down every single property and any event that I've seen in this park. This is most definitely, in my opinion, one of those cases. Not pointing fingers or laying blame on anybody, but in my opinion, it was a simple human error. Somewhere along the way, somebody put the wrong 1 or 2, whatever, beside it. The property's never been paid. The only thing that makes sense is it to be zoned as its intended use has been for the past 75, 80 years. And that would mean it would have to be zoned an M2.
Sorry, you would have to be zoned an M2 if it was a pit, you mean?
Oh, sorry, M1, if it was the sawmills, sorry.
Okay, well, I have a comment about that, but go ahead, Councillor Nash.
I don't know all the background is Councilor Woods, but I would agree from everything I've read and heard with a couple of the presentations, I would say that somewhere along the way there was an error made. And I would propose that there be two minor revisions when we get to it on the proposed motion. May I say those two minor things now?
Okay, just for clarity, are you suggesting, are you commenting on it, or are you going to suggest an amendment?
I'm going to suggest an amendment by commenting on it. It was just at the bottom, page 4 of 7, the part that read, and the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby waive the non-refundable administration fee
Yeah,
in the amount of $1,000 as per the current municipal fees and charges bylaw, along with planning fees. We just add the words along with planning fees. And then after planning fees, we would go comma and then on the second page, it said, take out the word on the second one, it says, and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby recommend that subject to the receipt of a rezoning application from Ted Greenwood. From that point on, I remove the words and the receipt of the applicable security deposit to cover any fees related to the work of the planning consultant. In respect to the application, I would take out that sentence and then restart it that staff proceed with the application.
okay, so I understand, but you're just implementing what Councillor Woods said, essentially, you're trying to avoid. Are there other comments? So really the matter in question is, do we want to charge? We want to keep the planning fees? Waive the deposit, or waive the non-refundable fee and keep the planning fees, or do we want to waive it all? Are there any other comments about that particular issue?
The only, I'm through, this would have to go through a public meeting process, I believe, if I'm correct, right?
It will, because it's a rezoning, so
That's what I thought.
regardless of whether there's fees or not. And that's part of that is what the $1,000 is covers for the municipality. What do we have an estimate of what the planning fee is that to be, Madam CAO?
If I recall, Ms. Matthews' note indicated approximately $600. And that's assuming that there's no appeal. Let me just find her memo here. I think that information came from Mr. Jackson. And
I could have looked that up myself, I suppose, but I didn't remember reading it.
Look on last paragraph of her memo. Estimated cost of $600, assuming no appeal. And the two normal deposits the municipality receives is the the administration fee $1,000 and a security deposit of $1,500, which is what I'm hearing. Councilor may want to wait that as well.
But the security deposit goes towards the 600, right? It's whatever, it's a. But okay, right, all right. Does anyone have any comments on that? Anyone else? My only comment is this, as somebody who's been around the municipality for a lot of years, I could tell you half a dozen rural properties that had sawmills on them at one time or another. That don't today, but they did. They had sawmills. I bought lumber from some of them. You might be surprised if I told you where they were. I'm not gonna do it here, but you know, obviously. But the properties are zoned rural, they were zoned rural in the front, they were farms, and farmers had woodlots. And sometimes they would have merchantable lumber, and they would go and buy themselves an old sawmill like the one that's on that Don McPhee had on this property. I don't think I'm telling any secrets, right? That Mr. Green was probably the one he's concerned about. And they sold the lumber to people. And I think lumbering and lumber mills was never inconsistent with something that he would do on a farm. So that's how they got there. Now, the question is was it, I mean, when the municipality was created, there may or may not have been a sawmill still there, but whether anybody noticed that there was, they may have just looked at the map and said, oh, well, it's a piece of rural property, where is it sold it, aren't you? So all I'm saying is I'm perfectly prepared to accept that there are properties that are zoned incorrectly, that were zoned incorrectly when the municipality was created. And keep in mind, you know, we're starting with, you know, particularly in the unorganized parts of the municipality where there had never been any zoning. It was no. And it was to a large extent, it was a desktop exercise as I understand it from John Jackson. So. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's other cases like that, and we could perhaps be zoning, we could be perhaps setting a precedent. But I think if it were my property, right, I would come to you, I would be coming to you and saying, I didn't create this problem. Why should I pay $2,000 to fix something that was perfectly fine to start with? And because somebody made a sort of slight mistake when they applied as zoning to it. So I don't know. I guess I have a little sympathy. I hope we're not opening up a can of worms here, but so I don't know. I don't hear anybody saying that we shouldn't. That we shouldn't waive the whole thing. So the mover and seconder are advocating to change the motion. And let me see exactly. I'm going to go back to see. There isn't really a change. There isn't really a change on the first place, Councilman Nash, I don't think, is there? Everything that's on the first page in the motion is correct as it stands, no?
Right to the very last sentence on the first page, Mr. Mayor, where it says, municipal fees and charges bylaw.
Yeah.
You just add the word after that, I would suggest, along with planning fees, foster fee, and you're just adding 4 words.
Oh, I see, yeah, because taking the stuff out of, you have to take something out on the next page, but you still don't say. As per the current municipal, the administration fee in the amount of $1,000. And the applicable security deposit.
I would say that. That one was a line.
Yeah. All right, we'll just put that in there, okay, and the applicable security deposit as per the current municipal fees and charges bylaw. And then on the next page, what we're doing is we're taking out when the receipt of a rezoning application from Ted Greenwoods, we're taking out the words and the receipt of the applicable security deposit to cover any fees related to the work of the planning consultant in respect of the application. So the comma now goes after the name Ted Greenwood, that staff proceed with the applicable advertisement.
The only single fee would be full almost all to the first part. Along with planning fees being waived, we want to note that the fees are being waived at the end. The last four words there.
I think that's probably necessary, so we're not requiring a security deposit. But you're also not requiring any planning fees to be billed to this gentleman. So that would clarify it.
All right, so what you need to say is then, I'm gonna read that last paragraph on the first page. And that the council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby waive the non-refundable administration fee in the amount of $1,000 and the applicable security deposit and any fees related to the work of the planning consultant, right?
Well, I think you could say it by way, Mr. Mayor, and that the council of the municipality does hereby waive the non-refundable administration fee in the amount of $1,000 and applicable security deposit as per the current municipal fees and charges bylaws, along with the planning fees. Right?
All right, okay, we can do that, along with any planning fees related to the work of the planning consultant in respect to the application. Is that what you want? Any fees? Is it are we calling them planning fees? Yes, planning fees. Fees related to the work of the planning consultant in connection with the application. Connection with the application. Semicolon and, okay, wait. I want to read it to you one more time, the last two clauses. So, bottom of page 1, and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby waive the non-refundable administration fee in the amount of $1,000 and the applicable security deposit as per the current municipal fees and charges bylaw, along with any planning fees related to the work of the planning consultant in connection with the application, and I continued on the next page, that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby recommend that, subject to the receipt of a rezoning application from 10 Greenwood, that staff proceed. Sorry. Yeah, all right, there's too many that's, but that's that. And that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby recommend that subject to the receipt of the zoning application from Ted Greenwood, staff proceed with the application with the applicable advertisement and circulation of the notice of public meeting. You good? Mover and seconder? All right. All those in favor of this motion? All right, that motion is carried. All right.
Do we?
Yeah, I'm afraid we are gonna have to do. Quite of my best intentions, we're gonna have to do a curfew. Just, I'll find the paper so I can make a note of it. So mover and seconder that the council hereby continue its council meeting past the allotted time of 3.5 hours and continue for an additional 1/2 hour. Moved by Councillor Woods. Seconded by Councillor Lamb. All those in favor? All right, thank you. That's carried. You don't necessarily have to use up all of the 1/2 hour. correspondence on page 9 of the agenda. So, whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items listed on page 9 of the March 21st, 2023 council agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that council receive the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion / action. Mover and seconder, and then we'll populate the list. So Councillor Nash moves, seconded by Councillor Woods. What ones would you like to talk about? I'd like to talk about C for a minute, which is TPSMA meeting, TPSMA spring meeting, which is Friday, May 5th. In beautiful downtown Sprucedale. I would also like to talk about D, which is this is a Magneto One resolution fish stocking. In the Magneto One. And are there any others on that list? I'm just gonna. I can see if there's anything here that. That's right.
Just maybe a few comments around E. And,
And all right, is that the homelessness one? E? Yeah, all right. E.
and G.
I'm sorry, I'm going backwards through the list here. E is, I'm prevented to spell it. Okay, homelessness is E.
And
Okay, let's seem to not have an E. Oh, there it is, there it is. Okay. So that came from the DSAP board, right? Looks like it says Social Services Administration Board, it says at the top of it, so homelessness. I'll just put DSAP. Right. I'm sorry, you had E and then you had. Which one? Did you have G or? Oh, F, all right, sorry.
no, sorry. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one.
G is the mega school, H is food insecurity. Okay, so it's H you want. Okay, so the list that I have right now is C, D, E, and H. Are there any others? Did I miss one?
G.
Oh, F, G. And B was what? That was the school board from Parry Sound. Town of Parry Sound. To school. Okay, have we got the list? All right. All right, well, I'll try to go through fairly quickly. The District of Parry Sound Municipal Association has usually 2 meetings a year. They're face-to-face meetings. They involve lunch usually and some speakers and that sort of thing. This particular one is, as I said, is in Sprucedale on Friday, May the 5th. Goes for Morning typically finishes around lunchtime with. That's usually what happens. I don't see an agenda, but. What we have done in the past, we haven't done it for a while because they've not been holding them during the pandemic, but they're back in action. Historically, what we've done is said counselors who wanted to go. And go, I mean, there's a small registration fee, I forget what it is, but I'm sure it says here somewhere, but. 30 bucks, but you get a lunch for that. So, I guess. I'm almost certain that there was a resolution somewhere, wasn't? Yeah, it's okay. So, what I'm going to, you know what, just for the sake of sanity, let's approve our resolution to discuss these items, and then we'll come to the matters arising and do, so we don't get resolutions mixed up. So we're gonna agree that we're gonna talk about C, D, E, H, and G. All those in favor? All right, that's carried. Trying to make the job of the clerk too difficult when she has to write this up, right? All right, so I think I have historically liked to go to these things. I haven't gone to them all the time, but sometimes if possible, I would go. I guess what we'd like to do is get a list of people who want to attend so that staff can send a note along, because they need to know how many people are going. So I don't know if there are individuals who'd like to go. So Councillor Lang, just make the rush. Who else wants to go? Councillor Woods, I know.
I've never been to any of the functions whatsoever. We were on lockdown for
Yeah,
pretty much the whole.
no, that's right. It's Friday morning, you know that, right? Okay, all right.
They usually have a door prize, you stay till 2 o'clock or something. Just to keep you there.
You gonna go with Councillor?
I would love to go. I have always loved to go to this meeting. I've gone, but I have to just say that I can't that day, but please, can I go to the fall one?
Jared.
I'm sorry, I can't make it that day.
Anybody else wants to go? What? Okay. So, CAO clerk. Andre. Well, I don't know, maybe there's enough. I can probably go too, but you know. I mean, I don't know. I should check.
Yeah.
You know what?
It'll be on our expenses next year when it comes up. The 30 bucks.
It probably will be, yeah. Plus some mileage. I don't know. Let me look quick really quickly to see, because it's me. That's I think. I think it's on teeth. Yeah, no. All right, so moving on from this one, the resolution is that the following members of council and staff be approved to attend the spring meeting of the District of Parson Municipal Association be held on Friday, May 5th, 2023, hosted by the Township of Merck, 1 Peace. Councillor Lamb, Councillor Woods, CAO Clerk Henry, Mayor Comrie. All those in favor? Thank you, folks. All right, so the next one. I'm sorry, what did I do with the list? Flipped it over. All right, so we did that one. The next one was the item D, which was a resolution from the town of Magnetawan Council regarding fish stocking in the Magnetawan watershed. This is an issue that the Rod and Gun Club, our Rod and Gun Club is particularly interested in. Some of you will know that. I have and what to fill you in on sort of what's going on is that the ministry's fish biologist, who I guess, and there, well, I shouldn't say biologists. There are a couple of them. There's a committee of them, and they had some input from members of various communities. So a number of people from the town of Magnetawan, Sam Dunnett, the mayor, and some others were involved. From Whitestone, the main person who's involved with it is you know who I'm talking about. I got Greenwood stuck in my mind. That's not his name. Dennis Morrison. Sorry. And as a matter of fact, the ministry had a consultation on that, and what is happening is that the technical guys in M&R don't think that they're not, for various reasons, which I think, to be honest with you, are mostly, not invented here, and why are knowledgeable amateurs trying to do stuff that we ourselves, the ministry, can't do. But they don't like these fish hatchery stuff, and they try to give them a hard time, and they like them. They'd be happy if they just shut it down. They don't think stocking of walleye does any good. But they don't have any others. I don't have any good arguments. There was a lengthy report in it, which I'd be happy to send to any of you who want to see it. Various of us weighed in on this because I do believe in what they're doing, and I believe in the fish stocking, and provided input to the ministry that they shouldn't try to ban it, right, or cut them off, but they're looking for support, and they're trying to get the minister involved, right, because this is the bureaucrats are the ones who are kind of obstructing it. So that's a very long roundabout way of saying I think we should support this resolution. And so I don't know if someone would like to just make a real question that the council of the municipality of Whitestone support the Magnetawan resolution.
Mr. Mayor, perhaps
Or did you have one?
we have a timing. Why don't we bring a resolution back, sort back to the consent meeting? Looks a bit time sensitive.
All right, if you want to do that, that would. That's okay. Is there any other discussion about that one? Sorry to be so long-winded. Okay, so that brings us to item E, which was the memo from D7 about homelessness. Councillor Bray, I'll let you
Yes,
take over.
I think I sent around, I hope you all got it, the report, the CAO's report from the staff. Just either yesterday or the day before. So this is looking at the issues around homelessness, and that the homelessness situation has it's difficult for people. If you look at our in that report, the housing for rented income, the wait list is over 400. It's been over 400 all the years that I worked at DSOC. We had never been able to get it down. And those are people who, because of their circumstances, they cannot afford what the rents are now. We have lots of people living in our community of Whitestone that may not be homeless, but we have lots of people who are precariously housed. And so at any situation happening, whether it's a fire or whether it's something else, they could be homeless. I think that this is something that we because the District of Social Services Administration Board does our social services for us, I think it's important for us to support them, and I would suggest a resolution coming back to support this, their resolution. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments about that? Is there support for having this come back as a resolution? I see you nodding of heads. Okay, I'm just gonna make a note on the papers, the resolution. Shouldn't be coming to next meeting or something. All right. We'll save us a little time tonight. Item H. I do have a resolution regarding food security, and I think you've all seen it. It's quite lengthy, so perhaps I won't read it, but I'm wondering if, since I think you all have it in front of you, it's essentially we're supporting the health unit's letter regarding it. This came from the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit. Is there a mover and seconder for that we pass this resolution, which is essentially indicate Whitestone support for the letter there? It's basically calling on the government to legislate targets, increase social assistance, create a guaranteed living wage, et cetera, and send it to 100 people. I guess I'm looking for a mover and seconder. Like, oh, sorry, Councillor Gray is moving and Councillor Woods is seconding. Is there any discussion about this?
Well, I think this, Mr. Mayor, I think this goes along with the other one about homelessness. I think that the number of families having to use food banks in our area. I know that in some of the small communities throughout East Parry Sound, they've had to create little food banks there as well, because we just have too many people who cannot afford to pay the prices of food at this time. So I think that it's important to support them. I think that, we need to, I know that they have a lot of work on their plate to try and help some of our people who are in difficult situations. And I think that we have a lot of community support here for the food banks, and that's always been strong, but I think we could support them in supporting their resolution.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor of sending this letter on? Okay. That is carried. Okay, thank you. And finally, item G, which was the town of Parry Sound's memo, and essentially it is this time it is asking for a response for an analysis to be done from the school board of capital spending per capita for students in West Parry Sound versus students in North Bay, and as well to consider refurbishing the McDougall School for grades junior kindergarten to 6, and use the new mega school for grades 7 to 12 instead of having them all in the mega school, which was the current plan. We have in the past supported motions to the school board, the previous board, I think, but asking them to revisit to do an accommodation review, which oddly enough, the Ministry of Education had actually suspended that, so that was a bit of a problem. But I think this motion is what this motion is asking for is actually a bit different. It's saying tell us how much you're spending per capita and why is there a discrepancy? Because the reality is there's a discrepancy. We know there is. And then have a report on what would, what options they're considering now in light of the new accommodation data that indicates they can't all go in the mega schools. So, does someone want to request that we bring back a support motion for that one? Again, I see Councillor Bray and Councillor Lamb. I think it's an issue that has to be addressed, right? So I'm going to extend my my bracket down to that one. If you're content with that resolution, we'll just let the let that play out. All right, so let's see. We now completed our list. All right, we have. So I think where we're at on the agenda, if I go back to the beginning of it now, would be maybe what's good. What is it? Councillor items are we at? Yes, we're at councillor items. Councillor Nash.
I'm gonna ask one very simple one, because I know we're being run out of time. I know we always seem to run out of time here. I would just ask that maybe at the next council meeting, if we could put on the agenda simply to review the meeting schedule for the rest of the year. And the reason I'm asking for that is, I know we tried, what was it, 3 or 4 of the afternoon meetings, and I thought some of them went okay. But I want to bring it back, so we can look at it and see if we want to amend and be in the need to failure, that's all. I was watching tonight, but if it's another business, wherever it would go on the next council meeting, that would be great. All else, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our clerk will make a note of that, I'm sure. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I was at a thrift shop meeting yesterday. Just want to announce thrift shop will be opening on April the 1st. And it's open Saturdays and Sundays until July and August. During that time, it's open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it closes on Sunday, October the 29th. So ladies and gentlemen on the thrift shop committee, because there is one, are a bunch of hardworking people, and we're all enthusiastic to get going on this year's programs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. That's good. Councillor Woods.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll be quick as possible. Just a question, kind of reminder, sign on the bunny trail. Now I know we're looking forward to the snow melting. We just utilize that sign for a little bit of messaging. I had a ratepayer ask about down at the beach here. Well, asking if we can have a street light installed down towards the dock, the ramp area. Is that the lighting not adequate? If anyone's down there at night trying to get a boat in or out, or I know even fire department, it might help if you're filling up the tanker, if there was more light down there. I had someone specifically ask me that question, so I said I would ask during council conference then. And I was just wondering, if we advertised for a swimming instructor. What's thought about that? Because I don't want that to fall under the side.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, we've advertised a couple of times, and we're going to keep on advertising now that we're going to be on Facebook and what's the one that the kids use?
Instagram.
What is it called?
Twitter.
Instagram, yes. thank you. The young folks.
TikTok.
Yeah, not
No,
TikTok.
not TikTok.
It's gonna be, we'll be on Instagram, so yeah, we're going to start blasting and it'll be in our e-newsletter. I actually thought I had a young man that could teach swimming, but he decided to take the job with the town of Perry Sound instead. So yes, we're working on that, and in terms of the light, could I suggest that be discussed at the budget meeting tomorrow, because that might be a good place to bring it up, and it gets added if the council is agreeable.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other councillor items? All right, we do have on the agenda questions for the public. We have two members still who have held on Zoom to the bitter end. I don't know if there are any questions, but I'm not seeing anybody's tile light up here on Zoom, but in any case, I will take the opportunity to thank you members of the public who persevered. With that, what we have left is our confirmatory bylaw. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Nash moves. And I guess Councillor Woods is gonna second. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Who would like to move adjournment? Councillor, right, Councillor Woods would like to move adjournment, so. Right, we got you, and I think you're all in favor, because I see feet moving. Right, Councillor Woods, and the meeting is adjourned at 10:30 something or other, 32, we'll say. Can't see my computer clock anymore, but. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.